Story 1. It happened on a Tuesday. I was in my home office wrapping up some work when a notification popped up on our shared tablet. It was a text message, synced from my fiancée Claire's phone. We rarely used the tablet, it mostly just sat on the charger, but for some reason I glanced at it. The message was from her mom. Her mom. Any luck getting him to talk about the loans? And then a new message from Claire, a reply that just popped up right as I was looking. Not yet, he's avoiding it, but don't worry, I'll get him to agree before the wedding. Once he pays them off, I'm gone. I just stared at it. The words didn't seem real, it was like my brain just refused to process them. I run my own architecture firm, my entire life is about details, about how things fit together, and this one sentence just took a sledgehammer to the entire structure of my life. Gone. Once he pays them off. It wasn't a joke, it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. A cold, simple, brutal plan. My first thought was just white-hot rage. I wanted to pick up the tablet and throw it through the wall. I wanted to walk into the living room where I could hear her laughing at some show on TV and just unleash hell. But then, something else took over. A weird, icy calm. This wasn't something you scream about. Screaming is what you do when you're trying to save something. This thing was already dead. All that was left was the demolition. I took out my phone and took a picture of the tablet screen. I emailed it to myself. Then I went back to the message thread on the tablet and just kept scrolling up. She'd been careless, so sure that her quiet, predictable fiancé would never think to look. It was all there, going back months. A carefully orchestrated plot, masterminded by her mother to get me to pay off her $150,000 in student loan debt from her art history degree. There were texts from her mom coaching her on what to say, how to act. Don't be aggressive about it, make it about our future. Tell him you can't feel settled until you're both debt-free as a team. Cry a little if you have to. He'll feel guilty. And Claire's replies, he's so focused on the wedding planning it's the perfect distraction. I almost feel bad sometimes. He's a good guy. Followed by her mom's reply, don't feel bad, feel smart. This is for your future, not his. The one that really got me was about what came after. But what do I do after? It'll be obvious if I leave right away. You stay for a year, make it look good. Then you say you're unhappy, you've grown apart. By then the money is gone, the loans are paid, you walk away free and clear. It's a plan, a perfect plan. For 2 years I thought we were building a life. She thought she was executing a heist. I closed the message app. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. My hand was perfectly steady as I poured a glass of water. She was still on the couch. Hey babe, she said, not looking up from the TV. You okay? You're quiet, just thinking about a project, I said. My voice sounded normal. It was the calmest I had ever felt. She thought she was playing chess and that I didn't even know there was a board. She had no idea I had just seen the whole game, every move she was planning to make. And I was about to flip the table over. Update 1. The 2 weeks that followed were the strangest of my life. I didn't confront her, not yet. Confrontation would lead to denial, fake tears, and promises to change. It would be messy. I don't do messy. I do clean, precise, and final. Thank you for all the comments on my first post. A lot of you said to play the long game, but I couldn't. Every moment I was in the same house as her felt like a lie. My plan had to be fast and brutal. First, I documented everything, every text message. I also started looking into our finances. She lived in my house. I paid the mortgage and all the utilities. She drove a car that was in my name. I paid for her insurance, her gas, our vacations, our dinners out. Her small paycheck from the art gallery was her fun money. My income was our life money. I had been supporting a parasite, and she was planning to kill the host after one last big meal. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense guy named Frank, confirmed my next steps. She has no legal claim to your house or your assets as a girlfriend. Your only vulnerability is if you voluntarily give her a sum of money. The entire plan hinges on you agreeing to pay those loans. So you're going to agree. That was the key. I had to let her think she was winning. I had to walk her right up to the finish line, let her taste the victory, and then pull the rug out from under her so hard she wouldn't know what hit her. So I started playing the part. A few days after I found the texts, I brought it up. We were making dinner. I sighed dramatically and said, you know, I've been thinking a lot about what you said about your loans, about us starting our life as a team. She turned to me, her eyes wide with fake hope. You have. Yeah, I said, and I don't want that hanging over us. It's my wedding gift to you. I'm gonna pay them off. She burst into tears. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. She threw her arms around me, sobbing about how I was the most generous, wonderful man alive. She immediately called her mom to tell her the news. I could hear her mother's triumphant squeals through the phone. The fish had taken the bait. There's just one thing I added after she hung up. I don't want to just wire the money. This is a huge moment for us. I want to do it properly. I want to have a dinner, a celebration with our parents. I'll have my bank draw up a cashier's check for the full amount, and I'll present it to you that night in front of our families. A real symbol of us starting our new life together. She was ecstatic. A public ceremony of her victory. It was more than she could have dreamed of. She thought I was being romantic. I was just setting the stage. The dinner was last night. A private room in the best restaurant in town. Claire and her parents were on one side of the table. My parents were on the other. Claire was glowing, absolutely radiant. Her mom looked like a cat that had just swallowed a canary. Her dad, a decent guy who I now realize was completely clueless, just looked happy for his daughter. We went through the motions, small talk, wine, appetizers. Claire and her mom kept exchanging little knowing smiles. My parents were talking about how excited they were for the wedding. Then, after the main course, I stood up. I had a single envelope in my hand. As you all know, I've asked you here for a special reason. Claire and I are about to start a life together, and I wanted to begin that life on the right foot. Claire, your student loan debt has been a huge burden on you, and because I love you, I want to lift that burden. So as my wedding gift to you, I am paying off your entire student loan debt. My parents smiled, impressed by the gesture. Claire's dad clapped me on the shoulder. Claire and her mom were practically vibrating with joy. I opened the envelope, but I didn't pull out a check. I pulled out a single piece of paper. It was a printed, blown-up screenshot of the text message she had sent me 2 weeks ago. I laid it on the center of the table for everyone to see. Don't worry, once he pays off my student loans, I'll leave. The silence that fell over that room was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Claire's face went from radiant joy to absolute bone-white horror in a split second. Her mother looked like she had been slapped. My parents stared at the paper, then at Claire, their faces a mask of confusion and disgust. Her father read the text and the color drained from his face. He just looked at his daughter, then his wife, and the dawning realization was painful to watch. This was never a wedding, I said, my voice cold and even. It was a con, a very well-planned con, I'll admit. Your mother should be proud. I then pulled out a second set of papers. They were copies of the text conversations between Claire and her mom, the ones where they planned the whole scheme. I handed a set to my parents and a set to her father. I believe these will answer any questions you might have, I said. Claire started sobbing, a pathetic, gasping sound. Mark, no, it's not what it looks like. I can explain. There's nothing to explain, I said, cutting her off. You explained it all perfectly in your texts. The wedding is off. We are over. I looked at her dad. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. You raised a daughter, but your wife raised a con artist. Then I stood up. Mom, Dad, let's go. We walked out of that restaurant, leaving them to sit in the wreckage. The fallout began before I even got to my car. A hysterical voicemail from Claire, screaming and crying. Then a text. You have ruined my life. My reply was simple. No, I just stopped paying for it. I got home and all her stuff was already gone. I'd had movers pack it up and deliver it to her parents' house while we were at dinner. The locks were changed, the digital key code was erased. For the past 24 hours, my phone has been a war zone. I finally just blocked her number and her mom's, but I got one last desperate voicemail from a blocked number this morning. It was her. Mark, please, she sobbed. You can't do this. I made a horrible mistake. My mom, she pushed me. Please, I'm going to go to your parents' house. I'm going to talk to them. They love me. They'll make you listen. She thinks this is a negotiation. She thinks she can deploy her fake tears and manipulate my parents. She has no idea who my father is. She has no idea what happens when you try to con a family of architects. She's about to try and reason with the man who taught me how to spot a fatal flaw from a mile away. Hey, everyone. It's Mark, the op from the story about the student loan scheme. First of all, the response to my first post was insane. I read hundreds of your comments, and it felt good knowing I wasn't crazy for how I handled things. A lot of you were asking for an update, especially about what would happen when my ex-fiancée, Claire, tried to confront my parents. Well, she did it, and the result was more spectacular than I could have ever planned. So here's the final chapter. After the dinner where I exposed everything, I went completely dark. I blocked Claire and her mom on everything. The silence was incredible. My parents, on the other hand, were getting the full court press. My mom told me Claire had left her a dozen tearful, rambling voicemails, spinning a tale about how it was all a huge misunderstanding and how her mother had pressured her into a stupid joke. My mom wasn't buying a word of it. I had already warned them about Claire's final desperate threat from her last voicemail, that she was going to show up at their house. My dad's only response was a calm "let her come." It happened on Saturday. I was at my own place trying to enjoy a quiet weekend when my dad called me. His voice was calm, but I could hear a steel edge to it that I knew well. "Mark," he said, "the demolition crew has arrived." He put the phone on speaker and set it down on table in his study, right next to the front door. I was about to have a front row seat. I heard the doorbell ring. I heard my mom open the door. Her voice was polite but frosty. "Claire, we weren't expecting you." Then I heard Claire, her voice thick with fake tears. "I am so sorry to bother you. I had to talk to you. I had to explain. Mark won't speak to me and he's not thinking clearly. He's throwing everything away over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding when it's written in black and white, Claire." A deep voice cut in. That was my dad. He had stepped into the entryway. "My son showed us your texts, all of them." Claire started sobbing harder, but that wasn't me. That was my mother. She's the one who is obsessed with my loans. She put all those ideas in my head. "I love Mark. I would never hurt him. You know me. You know I love him." My dad let her finish. The silence stretched for a few seconds. Then he said, "I am an architect, Claire. My son is an architect. We build things, buildings, relationships, families. And the first rule of building anything that is meant to last is that you must have a solid foundation. You don't build on sand, you don't build on lies, and you certainly don't build on a blueprint of deceit and fraud." "It wasn't fraud," she wailed. "It was a mistake." "Was it a mistake when you texted your mother that you'd stay for a year to make it look good before leaving?" My dad asked, his voice sharp as glass. "Was it a mistake when you wrote that once you were debt-free, you would have options and wouldn't be trapped anymore?" "That doesn't sound like a mistake. That sounds like a meticulously designed plan. The kind of plan an architect can appreciate from a technical standpoint. Morally, however, it is repugnant." He wasn't yelling. He was dissecting her piece by piece with surgical precision. "You didn't come here to explain," my dad continued. "You came here to execute the next phase of your plan. You failed to manipulate my son, so now you are attempting to manipulate his parents. You see us as another structural weakness you can exploit, but you are mistaken. This family is not a house of cards." Just as Claire was about to launch into another round of excuses, I heard a car pull up outside, then another knock at the door. My mom opened it again. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she muttered. It was Claire's parents. Her father, John, was in the lead, looking flustered. Her mother, Susan, was right behind him, her face a mask of practiced concern. "We are so sorry to be here like this," John began, trying to sound reasonable. "Our daughter is a wreck, as you can imagine. This has all been a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. I think Mark may have overreacted." My dad cut him off. "Overreacted? John, I saw the texts. Your wife coached your daughter step by step on how to commit financial fraud against my son. Did you know about this?" John puffed up his chest, trying to look indignant. "Of course not. I'm as shocked as you are." Susan was just trying to help Claire with her financial anxiety. Her methods were misguided, but her heart was in the right place. I had to give it to him. He was a good actor. At the restaurant, I had almost felt sorry for him. I had thought he was a clueless victim in his wife's and daughter's scheme, but my father has been designing and negotiating contracts for 40 years. He can spot a lie from a mile away. "So you're telling me," my dad said slowly, "that your wife and daughter have been planning this for over 6 months, and you, her husband and father, had absolutely no idea? You live in the same house, you share finances, and you never once had a single conversation about a plan to extract $150,000 from my son." "I am a busy man," John said dismissively. "I don't get involved in their day-to-day drama." "I see," my dad said. Then he delivered the final blow. "That's interesting, because I took the liberty of having a conversation with my son's lawyer this morning. He was quite interested in the legal definition of conspiracy to commit fraud. It's a fascinating subject. He mentioned that in cases like this, investigators will often look at a family's complete financial records, phone records, bank statements, everything, to determine who was aware of the plan. It's amazing what a forensic accountant can uncover. The threat wasn't overt, but it was crystal clear. And it worked. John's face went white. Susan let out a little gasp. Now this is an overreach, John stammered, his composure finally cracking. There is no need to involve lawyers, isn't there? My dad countered. Your daughter tried to steal a sum of money that would represent a down payment on a house. That's not a misunderstanding. That is grand larceny in a pretty dress. And you, by your own admission, either knew and did nothing, which makes you complicit, or you were so willfully ignorant of the scheme being hatched under your own roof that it amounts to gross negligence. Either way, you have no moral high ground here. He then turned his attention back to Claire. You came to this house looking for an ally. You will not find one here. You targeted my son because you thought his kindness was a weakness. You saw his stability as an opportunity. You are a predator, and you are no longer welcome in this family or in this house. The engagement is over. The relationship is over. You will have no further contact with my son. If you attempt to contact him or us again, we will pursue a restraining order. Is that clear? Claire just stood there speechless, her fake tears dried up, replaced by a look of pure unadulterated shock. She had been so certain she could manipulate them. She had walked into what she thought was a negotiation and found herself in a demolition. Now my dad said, his voice dropping to a final, dismissive tone, I suggest you and your family leave. You have a great deal to discuss, I imagine. I heard the door close. My dad picked up the phone. Are you still there, Mark? I'm here, I said. My voice was a little shaky. It's done, he said. The site is clear. The aftermath was even more satisfying. John, terrified that my dad would actually follow through and that his own shady finances might come to light, completely imploded. He and Susan had a massive fight right there in my parents' driveway. He blamed her for the plan failing. She blamed him for not being a better actor. Claire was left with nothing. Her parents are apparently on the verge of divorce, their own marriage built on a foundation just as rotten as the one she tried to build with me. Her father has cut her off financially, furious at the public humiliation and the risk she exposed him to. So Claire is now back at home, in a house at war with itself, with no fiancé, no job that can cover her bills, and $150,000 of student loan debt that is still and will forever be entirely hers. She didn't just lose a fiancé, she lost her entire support system. She gambled everything on a perfect plan and she lost it all. The demolition is complete. Story 2. My parents ignored my urgent calls from the hospital because my sister was freaking out over paint colors, so I had my lawyer come to the ICU. When they finally arrived, they realized the true price of their neglect. I collapsed. Right there, in the middle of the most important presentation of my life, my heart literally gave out. And when I woke up, alone and terrified, I discovered the people who should have been there for me chose paint swatches instead. The conference room lights flickered, blurring my vision. My grip tightened on the podium, but it wasn't enough. 40 pairs of eyes stared, and I knew something was terribly wrong. And as you can see from the Q3 projections, my voice wavered. The slides became a meaningless swirl of color. My heart wasn't just racing, it felt like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. My name's Sophia, and that day I was dying. Miss Wells, are you all right? Someone asked from the back. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The room spun. The ceiling panels started rotating above me as I crumpled to the floor. Voices erupted. Call 911. Is she breathing? Clear the room. My assistant, Sarah, appeared above me, her mascara already running. Sophia, stay with us. The ambulance is coming. I tried to reach for my phone, my arms heavy as lead. Call my parents, I managed to whisper before everything went dark. The next thing I remember was the cold. So much cold. Doctors spoke in urgent, hushed tones, words like cardiac arrhythmia and immediate surgery filtering through the fog. Please, I begged the nurse, prepping my arm, my phone. I need to call my family. She hesitated, then handed it over. With trembling fingers, I dialed my mother's number straight to voicemail. My father, same thing. My texts grew more desperate. Mom, I'm in the hospital. Dad, please answer. They're taking me to surgery. I'm scared. The nurse gave me a sympathetic look as she gently took my phone away. We need to go now, honey. I'm sure they'll be here when you wake up. They weren't. I woke up in the ICU hours later, groggy and utterly alone. The rhythmic beeping of monitors was the only soundtrack to my isolation. Sarah had left a note promising to be back, but hospital policy only allowed immediate family after hours. Immediate family. What a joke. Around 3 a.m., a night nurse came to check my vitals. She had kind eyes, a gentle touch as she adjusted my four. Your mother left a voicemail earlier, she said, reaching for my phone. Would you like to hear it? I nodded, a flicker of hope so faint in my chest. Then her voice. Hi, sweetie, we got your messages, but we can't come right now. Hazel is having an absolute crisis over the color they painted her new apartment. She's inconsolable, you know how she gets. We'll try to stop by tomorrow if she's feeling better. Love you. The nurse's face said it all. I turned away, hot tears streaming down my cheeks. Would you like me to call someone else for you? She asked softly. A memory flashed through my mind. Last Christmas, I'd written a check for $50,000 to cover Hazel's credit card debt. My mom had barely looked up from helping Hazel arrange her new designer handbag collection. Thanks, Sophie. You're such a good sister, good daughter, good ATM. I wiped my eyes and looked at the nurse. Actually, yes. Could you hand me my phone? I need to call my lawyer. She passed it to me, concern etched on her face. My hands were steady now as I scrolled through my contacts and pressed call. Derek, it's Sophia. I know it's late, but I need you. Bring the papers, all of them. Yes, I'm sure. I'm in the ICU at Mount Sinai. I paused, listening to his response. No, my family isn't here. That's exactly why I'm calling. After hanging up, I stared at the ceiling, my heart monitor beeping in rhythm with my new resolve. I'd almost died today, and my sister's paint color crisis had taken precedence. 20 years of similar moments crashed over me like a tidal wave. Hazel's tantrums at my college graduation. My parents missing my company's launch party because Hazel had a bad date. The countless times I cleaned up her messes while my own achievements collected dust. My phone buzzed, an Instagram notification. Hazel had just posted a selfie with our parents, all three huddled around paint swatches. The caption read, worst day ever. Thank God for family support. Hashtag blessed, hashtag family, hashtag crisis. I clicked off my phone and closed my eyes, feeling something hard and cold crystallize in my chest. It wasn't my heart this time. It was determination. Tomorrow, Derek would help me start dismantling everything I'd built for them, and for the first time in my life, I wouldn't feel guilty about it. Derek arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, his leather briefcase bulging. He took one look at me, hooked up to monitors and still pale from surgery, and his professional demeanor cracked. Jesus, Sophia, you look like hell. Thanks, I managed a weak smile. Always knew I could count on you for honesty. Did you bring everything? He pulled up a chair and started laying out papers on my bedside table. Everything you asked for. But are you sure about this? It's aggressive. My heart literally stopped yesterday, and my family was too busy picking paint swatches to care, I said, a bitter edge to my voice. I'd say aggressive is exactly what this situation calls for. Derek nodded, his jaw tightening. We'd been friends since college. He'd witnessed plenty of my family's behavior over the years. All right, let's start with the world changes. For the next hour, we methodically worked through the documents. My signature grew steadier with each page, like my hand knew this was right, even if my heart still ached. So that's your parents removed as beneficiaries, Derek said, shuffling papers. Next is revoking their access to your accounts, the ones you've been using to support Hazel's lifestyle. A memory surfaced last summer, standing in my parents' kitchen, holding Hazel's latest credit card statement. It's only $70,000 this time, Mom had said, not looking up from her magazine. You know how hard things have been for her since that breakup. Do it, I told Derek. All of it. He pulled out another stack of papers. And the vacation house. List it today if possible. Your parents spend every summer there, not anymore. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Hazel picked the perfect shade of sage, crisis averted. How are you feeling, sweetie? I showed it to Derek, who let out a low whistle. That's something else. Watch this, I said, opening the family group chat. My fingers flew across the keyboard, still in ICU after emergency heart surgery. Thanks for asking. Glad Hazel's walls are sage instead of seafoam. Definitely worth missing your daughter's near-death experience for. Derek raised an eyebrow, poking the bear. More like waking it up, I said, a cold satisfaction in my voice. They've been hibernating in their bubble of denial for too long. My phone immediately erupted with notifications. Mom, don't be dramatic, Sophie. The doctor said you're stable. Dad will visit soon, Princess. Hazel, OMG, why are you trying to make my apartment crisis about you? I turned my phone face down. Keep going with the papers, Derek. By noon, we had drafted everything needed to legally separate my finances from my family's parasitic attachment. Derek was packing up when my friend Camilla burst in, carrying real coffee and looking murderous. I just saw Hazel's Instagram story, she announced, handing me the coffee. She's doing a full home renovation reveal, tagged with hashtag blessed, hashtag new beginnings, hashtag family support. Not a single mention that her sister almost died yesterday. Of course not, I said, taking a sip. That would require acknowledging someone else's existence. I've got the papers ready to file, Derek said, standing, but I'll hold them until tomorrow. Give you time to think it through. I shook my head. File them now. I've had 38 years to think it through. After they left, I scrolled through my phone. Hazel had posted again, a boomerang of her twirling in her newly painted living room. Mom and Dad were in the background applauding. The caption read, "Sometimes it takes a village. So grateful for parents who drop everything to help in a crisis." Hashtag blessed, hashtag paint day, hashtag family first. My fingers hovered over the comment button. Instead, I opened my email and composed a message to my entire contact list. Dear friends and colleagues, I'm currently in the ICU at Mount Sinai following emergency heart surgery. While I'm stable now, it was a close call. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but for transparency about why I'll be out of office for a while. I'm also sharing because yesterday I learned something valuable about family. Sometimes the ones who should be there aren't, and sometimes that's the wake-up call you need. Best, Sophia, I hit send, then turned off my phone. Let them deal with the fallout of their choices being made public. I was done covering for them. A nurse came in to check my vitals. Glancing at the papers Derek had left behind, she asked, "Big decisions today, life-changing ones." "Your heart rate's much stronger," she noted, checking the monitor. I looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Yeah," I said, "I think it finally remembered how to beat for itself instead of everyone else." She patted my hand and left. In the quiet of my hospital room, I could have sworn I heard the sound of bridges burning, and it sounded like freedom. 3 days after my surgery, my parents finally graced me with their presence. Mom swept in wearing her signature Hermes scarf, carrying a bouquet that probably cost more than my hospital bill. Dad trailed behind, looking uncomfortable in the sterile environment. "Oh, darling," Mom exclaimed, as if we were meeting for lunch rather than visiting her daughter post-cardiac event. "These fluorescent lights are absolutely brutal on your complexion." "Nearly dying tends to do that," I replied flatly. Dad cleared his throat. "Now, Princess, no need for that tone. We're here now." 3 days later, I pointed out. Mom arranged the flowers, filling the silence with chatter. Hazel wanted to come, but she's still dealing with the contractor. Such a nightmare. They completely botched the crown molding. She's been crying all morning. I pressed the morphine button on my 4, not for pain, but for patience. "Where is Hazel anyway?" Dad asked, looking around as if she might materialize from behind the curtain. "Probably posting about her crown molding crisis on Instagram," I said. Did you know her story about paint swatches got more attention than my emergency surgery announcement? Mom's hand stilled on the flowers. "Sophia, please, you know how sensitive she is. She's been absolutely beside herself about your situation." "My situation?" I repeated. "You mean my heart stopping?" A knock at the door saved them from responding. Derek entered, impeccable in his suit, carrying a leather portfolio. My mother's face lit up. She'd always hoped we'd date. "Derek, how lovely to see you. Are you here to check on our girl?" "Actually," he said, walking to my bedside, "I'm here in my professional capacity." He handed me a folder. I opened it slowly, savoring the moment. "Mom, Dad, you remember Derek's my lawyer, right?" The color drained from my mother's face. Dad's forced smile flickered. "These are copies of documents I filed yesterday." I continued my voice study. I've removed you both from my will, revoked your access to all my accounts, and listed the vacation house in Florida for sale. But the house? Dad stammered. But where will we go in the summer? Not my concern. Mom's perfectly manicured hand flew to her throat. Sophia, you can't be serious. We're family. Family? I laughed, and the heart monitor betrayed my spike in anger. Let me tell you about family. Last month I paid off Hazel's $70,000 credit card debt. The month before that I covered her rent when she forgot to pay it for 3 months. Last year I funded her failed jewelry business. Want to know what I got in return when my heart stopped and I needed you most? You chose paint swatches over your dying daughter. That's not fair. Dad protested weakly. No, I said, leaning forward. What's not fair is that I've spent my entire adult life being your backup plan, your safety net, your human ATM. Well, guess what? The Bank of Sophia is officially closed. Derek handed them each a stack of papers. These detail the changes. I'd suggest reading them carefully. Mom's hands shook as she flipped through the documents. This is ridiculous. You won't go through with this. Family sticks together, Sophia, you know that. I looked her directly in the eyes. If that's true, how come I almost died alone? The silence that followed was deafening. The house is already listed. Derek added quietly, we expect it to sell quickly in this market. Dad sank into a chair, papers crumpling in his grip. Princess, please, let's talk about this rationally. I had plenty of time to think rationally while lying here alone for 3 days, I said. Did you know the nurses took turns sitting with me after surgery because they felt bad that I had no family here? Strangers showed more concern than my own parents. Mom's mascara was starting to run. You're being dramatic. We came as soon as we could. After Hazel's paint crisis was resolved, I corrected. Check your priorities, Mom. Better yet, check your phone. I'm sure Hazel's having another meltdown about crown molding right now. As if on cue, Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it instinctively. Go ahead, I said, answer it. We both know you will. She stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. This isn't over, Sophia. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. We'll discuss this when you're feeling better. Actually, we won't. I pressed the call button for the nurse. I'm ready for my rest now. As security escorted them out, a precaution Derek had arranged. I heard Mom's voice crack. She can't do this. She's our daughter. No, I whispered to the empty room. I'm just the backup daughter you never wanted but always needed, and I quit. The monitor showed my heart rate returning to normal, steady and strong, like it knew this was just the beginning. My phone rang at 3 a.m. Hazel's name flashed across the screen, and I answered out of morbid curiosity. How dare you? Her voice crackled with rage. How dare you do this to Mom and Dad? Good morning to you too, Hazel. How's the crown molding crisis? Don't you dare be sarcastic with me. They're devastated. Mom hasn't stopped crying and Dad had to take a Xanax. I adjusted my hospital bed to sit up straighter. Interesting how they can have such strong reactions to consequences but couldn't muster any concern when I was literally dying. Oh my God, you're not dying. Stop being so dramatic. My heart stopped, Hazel, actually stopped. But please tell me more about your paint, emergency. She made a sound between a scream and a sob. You need to fix this. Call Derek right now and undo everything. Or what? Or I'll never speak to you again. I laughed. Genuinely laughed for the first time in days. Is that supposed to be a threat? The line went quiet for a moment. When Hazel spoke again, her voice had that familiar, manipulative tremor, the one that usually preceded getting her way. Remember when we were kids and you promised to always take care of me? A memory flashed. I was 12, Hazel 6. She destroyed my science fair project the night before presentation, dumping glue all over weeks of work. Mom had blamed me for not sharing my supplies. Actually, I do remember, I said. I remember a lot of things, Hazel. Like how I sold Grandma's ring, my only inheritance, to bail you out of debt 3 years ago. Remember what you said then? Thanks, sis, you're the best. Right before you went on a shopping spree with Mom. That's different. I needed you. You always need. And I'm always expected to provide. Well, guess what? I'm done. Mom wants to meet, she said, changing tactics. One last family meeting to talk things through. I considered this. Fine, tomorrow at noon, the hospital cafeteria, but my contractor, noon, take it or leave it. She agreed, but I wasn't done. And Hazel, I'm bringing Camilla, your annoying friend. Why? Because I'm done being outnumbered. The next day, Mom and Dad arrived first, looking like they hadn't slept. Hazel swept in 10 minutes late, wearing oversized sunglasses and clutching an iced latte like it was life support. Camilla sat beside me, radiating protective energy. She'd known my family dynamics for years and had always been my voice of reason. Sophia, Mom began, reaching across the table. Let's talk about this rationally. Rational. Camilla interjected, like ignoring your daughter's emergency surgery. This is a family matter. Hazel snapped. Funny, I said. I was family when you needed your credit cards paid off. Dad raised his hands placatingly. Princess, we understand you're hurt, but this revenge, it's beneath you. Revenge, I leaned forward. This isn't revenge, Dad. This is boundaries. This is me finally saying no, you're being selfish. Hazel slammed her latte down. Do you know what this is doing to me? My anxiety is through the roof. My followers can tell something's wrong. Camilla snorted. Your sister almost died. And you're worried about your Instagram aesthetic. Stay out of this. Hazel whirled on Camilla. This is your fault. You've always tried to turn her against us. No, I cut in. You did that all by yourselves. Mom started crying, her practice tears right on schedule. We can fix this, sweetie. Just call Derek. Stop. My voice was steel. The house is already in escrow. The accounts are closed. It's done. Hazel stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. You ungrateful. She grabbed her latte and threw it at Camilla, who barely dodged the cup. The cafeteria went silent. Security approached quickly. And that, I said quietly, as if explaining something obvious, is exactly why this is happening. As security escorted Hazel out, her screams echoing down the hallway, I turned to my parents. We're done here. Sophia, please. Mom tried one last time. No, I'm going to be discharged tomorrow. When I leave this hospital, I'm leaving this dysfunction behind too. I stood up, Camilla steady beside me. Oh, and one more thing. I've instructed my lawyer to file a restraining order against Hazel. Consider this her first and last warning. Walking back to my room, Camilla squeezed my hand. You okay? I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in years. You know what's funny? My heart's actually beating better now that I've stopped letting them break it. Behind us, I could hear Hazel's distant screams mixing with Mom's sobs. The sound of consequences finally catching up to them all. The Florida house sold in 3 days, well above asking price. I signed the final papers for my new apartment, where I'd been recovering for the past week. Derek sat across from me, sliding over a cashier's check for $4,200,000. What are you going to do with it first? He asked. I'm hiring an estate sale company to clear it out, I said. Everything goes, including the piano. My hands stilled over the check. The baby grand piano, my childhood sanctuary. Mom had given it to Hazel on her 16th birthday, despite knowing I was the only one who played, especially the piano. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Local woman removed from luxury boutique after altercation with staff. The thumbnail showed Hazel being escorted out by security, mascara running down her face. Your sister's making headlines, Derek noted, peering at my screen. She always wanted to be famous. I forwarded the article to Camilla, who replied instantly. Karma's working overtime. The estate sale company arrived the next day. I watched via FaceTime as they cataloged everything, marking prices on pieces of my past. The woman in charge, Marie, held up a familiar jewelry box. What about this? Inside was a space where my grandmother's ring had once lived before I'd sold it to cover Hazel's gambling debts. Sell it, I said. Everything goes. Sophia. A voice screeched from off camera. Hazel had somehow gotten past security. You can't sell Mom's anniversary china. Marie turned the camera, showing Hazel trying to grab items off a table. Should I call the police? Immediately, I watched as Hazel was removed again, this time screaming about family heirlooms and betrayal. My phone lit up with texts from Mom. How could you sell our memories? Your father is heartbroken. That piano was for Hazel. We're still your family. I blocked their numbers. Later that afternoon, Derek called. His voice was tense. We have a situation. Hazel tried to file for temporary conservatorship over you. She's claiming your cardiac event affected your mental capacity. Says your erratic behavior proves you're unfit to manage your affairs. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Let me guess. She's volunteering to manage my money for me. Got it in one, don't worry, it's ridiculous. No judge would uphold it. I interrupted hard, make it expensive. And Derek, counter-sue for harassment. The estate sale started on Saturday. I watched the security cameras from my phone as strangers picked through my family's carefully curated image. The piano went first to a music school. Perfect. My phone pinged with an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line made my blood run cold. Your father's medical records. What is this? I asked Derek over speakerphone. Open it. Inside was a single line. Dad had a heart condition too. Mom never told you. Guess she loved one daughter enough to warn her. I felt my new, stronger heart skip a beat. Is this true? I had it verified, Derek said quietly. Your father has the same condition. Genetic. Hazel's been monitored for it since childhood. The room spun. They'd known I could have inherited this. And they never told me. Protected Hazel, but not me. Never me. Derek. My voice was steady despite the trembling in my hands. Remember when you said the conservatorship claim was ridiculous? Yes, prove it. Release my medical records to the court. Show them I'm not only competent, I'm thriving post-surgery. Then leak the fact that they knew about this genetic condition and deliberately withheld the information. That's nuclear, Sophia. Nuclear feels appropriate. As we hung up, another notification popped up. A certified letter from Hazel's lawyer. I opened the attachment, expecting more threats. Instead, I found myself staring at a photo. Me at 12, standing protectively beside 6-year-old Hazel. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, my girls, forever inseparable. Below it, Hazel had written, remember who you're supposed to be. My protector, my sister. Don't make me destroy you. I forwarded the threat to Derek, then opened my laptop. It was time to tell my story, all of it. The decades of manipulation, the financial abuse, the neglect. No names, just truth. As I typed, I remembered something my grandmother told me before she died. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop protecting people from the consequences of their own actions. My fingers flew across the keyboard, each word a brick in the wall I was building between my past and my future. Let them come. Let them threaten. I wasn't their protector anymore. I was finally my own. My blog post went live at midnight. By 6 a.m., it had over 100,000 shares. A story of family toxicity and survival read the headline. I hadn't named names, but anyone who knew us would recognize the truth. Camilla called first. Have you seen Twitter? You're trending. I refreshed my feed. Thousands of comments, most from people sharing similar stories of family dysfunction. The phrase golden child syndrome was everywhere. Your mother's country club friends are having a field day, Camilla continued. Apparently she had to leave her tennis match early because everyone was whispering. My phone buzzed. Nicholas, Hazel's on again. Off again, boyfriend. Your sister's losing it, he said without preamble. She's been screaming for hours, throwing things. I can't handle this anymore. Not my problem. She says you're lying about everything, that you're just jealous of her. I laughed. Ask her about Dad's heart condition. Ask her why they never told me I could die from the same thing that almost killed me last month. Silence. They knew since we were kids. Hazel got tested. I didn't even know it ran in the family. Jesus Christ. He exhaled heavily. I'm done. Tell Derek I'll testify about her behavior if he needs me to. By noon, the story had made local news. Prominent families' dirty laundry aired. A tale of medical neglect and financial abuse. They didn't use our names, but they didn't need to. Dad's phone call came next. Princess, please. They're asking me to step down from the country club board. Tragic, I said. Almost as tragic as not telling your daughter she had a potentially fatal heart condition. We were trying to protect you from worry. No, you were trying to protect Hazel from responsibility as usual. Your mother's devastated. Our friends are finally seeing who you really are. Derek called with updates. Hazel's conservatorship attempt was thrown out. The judge actually laughed. But there's more. She sent a cease and desist letter claiming your blog post caused her irreparable trauma. Perfect. Counter with the medical records. Already did. Her lawyer withdrew the letter in under an hour. I was reviewing transfer paperwork for my assets when my email pinged. A message from Nicholas. Thought you should see this. She doesn't know I recorded it. The attached video showed Hazel in her apartment raging at our parents. Fix this. Make her stop. I can't take people looking at me like this. Do something. Mom's voice. Darling, we're trying, but try harder. I'm the one who matters. I'm your real daughter. The video cut off. I forwarded it to Derek with one word. Leverage. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number, a photo of my grandmother's ring. The one I'd sold to help Hazel, missing something. The text read, who is this? I typed back, someone who bought it from the pawn shop. Want it back, meet me. I blocked the number and called Derek. They're getting desperate. Good, he said. Because I just filed the harassment suit. And Sophia, the ring thing, that was amateur hour. I bought your grandmother's ring back months ago. It's in my safe. Tears pricked my eyes. You did, of course. I knew you'd want it back someday. That evening my blog post hit national news. My inbox flooded with interview requests. Dr. Phil's producers called twice. Then came Mom's voicemail. She was crying, screaming, apologizing, all in the same breath. Please, sweetie, we can fix this. Tell everyone you were confused, say you made it up. We're your family. I played it for Camilla over wine. Wow, she said. She actually sounds sincere. She's not, I replied. Listen carefully. She's not saying she's sorry for what they did. She's sorry they got caught. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Local socialite has public meltdown at charity gala. The photo showed Hazel being escorted out again. Your sister is really committing to this spiral, Camilla observed. She's never faced consequences before. She doesn't know how. I opened my laptop and began typing again. Not another blog post. This time it was an email to my realtor. Subject line, looking for properties in California. Running away? Camilla asked, reading over my shoulder. No, I replied, thinking of the grandmother's ring waiting in Derek's safe, running towards something better. As if on cue, Mom's number flashed on my phone. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to answer. Some bridges aren't meant to be repaired. Some fires need to burn until there's nothing left but truth in the ashes. The family home looked smaller than I remembered. I stood in the driveway, keys in hand, staring at the colonial facade that had housed so many carefully curated lies. Want me to go in first? Camilla asked from beside me. No, I need to do this. I'd come to collect the last of my belongings before the move to California. Derek had arranged for a police presence, just in case, but the cruiser parked discreetly down the street still felt surreal. The front door opened before I could use my key. Mom stood there looking oddly diminished without her usual perfect makeup. You brought security, her voice cracked. I brought witnesses, I corrected, nodding toward Camilla and the police officer now walking up the drive. Dad appeared behind her. Princess, this is unnecessary. After Hazel's latest stunt, I'd say it's very necessary. They stepped aside, letting us enter. The house smelled of desperation and Chanel no. 5 Mom's stress cleaning signature. I'm here for my things, I said, heading toward the stairs. Just my childhood photos and some documents. Wait, Mom called out. There's something you need to know first. I turned, watching her twist her wedding ring, her tell for incoming manipulation. You should sit down for this. I'll stand. She exchanged looks with Dad, who nodded slightly. It's about your adoption. The word hung in the air like smoke. Camilla grabbed my arm, steadying me. My what? You're not. Mom's voice wavered. You're technically your Aunt Sarah's daughter. When she died, we took you in. You were only 2. We never told you because we wanted you to feel like real family. The room tilted. Aunt Sarah, Mom's sister who died in a car accident, my mother, my actual mother. Dad stepped forward. We loved you like our own. Stop. My voice was ice. You loved me like your own. You let me believe I was your biological child while withholding life-saving medical information because it wasn't actually genetic for me. You prioritized your biological daughter while I paid her bills, cleaned her messes, and nearly died alone. We didn't want you to feel different. Mom protested. Different. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. You mean like how you treated me differently my entire life? Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced Hazel's arrival. Oh good, she finally knows she's not really my sister. I'm not. I turned to her. Then I guess I'm not really responsible for you anymore. All those years of guilt, of obligation. They never belonged to me, did they? You ungrateful, Hazel started, but Mom cut her off. We gave you everything. Mom cried, a home, an education, opportunities. No, I interrupted. I earned those things. Every single one of them. While you were busy coddling your real daughter, I walked to the stairs, pushing past Hazel. In my old room, I found the box I'd come for. Photos, documents, memories. At the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small frame. Inside was the last photo taken of Aunt Sarah, my real mother, holding me as a baby. Downstairs, chaos erupted. Hazel was screaming about inheritance rights. Mom was sobbing about family loyalty. Dad was trying to talk over everyone about reasonable discussions. I descended the stairs with my box, the police officer moving closer. That's my baby photo album. Hazel shrieked, lunging for my box. The officer stepped between us. Actually, I said calmly, these are Aunt Sarah's photos, my mother's photos. I'm taking what's mine and leaving what never was. You can't just walk away from this family. Mom grabbed my arm, I shook her off. I'm not walking away from my family. I'm walking away from people who kept me around as a convenient backup plan. There's a difference. We'll sue. Hazel screamed. We'll take everything. Go ahead. I reached the door. But remember, I have proof of financial fraud, medical neglect, and now proof that you knowingly withheld my adoption status while using it against me. Want to see how that plays in court? Silence fell. I turned to them one last time. You know what's funny? You kept this secret thinking it would make me feel less like family, but knowing the truth, it finally sets me free. I'm not your backup daughter, I'm not your ATM, I'm Sarah's daughter, and I'm done carrying your burdens. Camilla opened the door, sunlight streaming in. Behind me, I heard Mom collapse into tears, Dad's futile attempts at comfort, Hazel's incoherent rage. But ahead of me, nothing but open road and possibility. Ready? Camilla asked. I clutched my box of real memories, feeling lighter than ever. Ready. We walked out into the sunlight, leaving the shadows of lies behind. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with another lawsuit threat from Hazel's lawyer. Let them come. I had truth on my side now, and truth, I was learning, was the strongest weapon of all. The California sun streamed through my office window as I finished typing my last blog post. My heart, now steady and strong, kept perfect rhythm with the keyboard clicks. And that's how I learned that family isn't about blood or obligation, I wrote. It's about choice. Every day, we choose who we let into our hearts. My phone lit up with Derek's call. The lawsuits are officially dismissed, he announced. All of them. The judge called them, and I quote, frivolous attempts at financial manipulation. How's Hazel taking it? Not well. Have you seen the tabloids? I pulled up the latest headline. Socialite's public meltdown goes viral. My sister ruined my life. The video showed Hazel throwing drinks at paparazzi outside a Manhattan restaurant. She's trending again, I said, not the kind of fame she wanted. Speaking of trending, I added, Mom had sent an email. The subject line read, your father's birthday. Inside was a photo of our last family vacation before everything imploded. Below it she'd written, we miss you. Can we just go back? I clicked delete. My doorbell rang. Camilla stood outside with 2 coffees and a small package. Special delivery from Derek, she announced, handing me the box. Inside, nestled in velvet, was my grandmother's ring, the one I'd sold for Hazel. The one Derek had rescued, but now it sat on a new chain, transformed into a necklace. Derek said you might want to wear it differently now, Camilla explained. New meanings for new beginnings. I fastened it around my neck just as my laptop chimed. A donation confirmation. I just funded a year of cardiac screening for low-income families through my local hospital. The program was named after Sarah, my real mother. Your support group starts soon, Camilla reminded me. Ready? I logged into the video call where dozens of faces appeared, all people who'd found their own strength through my story. We weren't just healing ourselves, we were building something new. Welcome, everyone, I began. Today we're talking about setting boundaries without guilt. Halfway through the session, my phone buzzed. A text from Nicholas, thought you should know. Hazel's trying to sell a story to the tabloids about your adoption. But don't worry, I sent them the video of her admitting to financial fraud instead. I smiled. Karma really was working overtime. Another email arrived from Dad this time. The subject line made me pause, I'm sorry. For what it's worth, he'd written, I was wrong. We were all wrong. Not just about how he treated you, but about what family means. You're stronger than any of us ever were. For the first time, his words held no power over me. I didn't need his approval or his apology. I was no longer that girl desperate for her family's love. The support group session ended with our usual affirmation. We choose ourselves today. Camilla pointed to my laptop screen. Look at your blog comments. A new message stood out. I left my toxic family today. Your story gave me courage. Thank you for showing me that walking away isn't giving up, it's growing up. I touched my grandmother's ring, now resting over my heart instead of weighing down my hand. Ready for dinner? I asked Camilla. The new Thai place has outdoor seating, always. Oh, and I invited someone from your cardiac support group, that writer who also survived family drama. She seemed cool. Outside, the sunset painted the sky in colors no paint swatch could capture. My phone buzzed one last time. Hazel posting another rant about family betrayal. I turned off notifications and smiled at Camilla. You know what? I think I'm finally done carrying their stories. It's time to live my own. We walked toward the restaurant, my grandmother's ring catching the last rays of sunlight. Behind us, a stream of comments flowed on my blog post. You helped me find my voice. I'm choosing myself today. Thank you for showing us the way out. Revenge had brought me here, but it wasn't what kept me standing. That came from something stronger. The power of choosing myself, of building a life where love didn't require sacrifice. My heart beat steady and true, no longer racing to please others or breaking under the weight of unwanted obligations. This was freedom. This was peace. And it tasted sweeter than any revenge ever could. Story 3, I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but I'm sitting in my car outside a Target parking lot at 2 a.m. because I can't face going home to our apartment right now. I need to get this out before I lose my nerve or convince myself I'm overreacting again. I'm Sarah, 29F, and I've been with Jake, 31M, for 8 months. This relationship has been healing for me in ways I didn't expect. I've struggled with body image issues my whole life. Growing up with a sister who looks like she stepped out of a magazine will do that to you. I spent 3 years in therapy working through body dysmorphia, and I thought I'd finally reached a place of acceptance. Jake seemed different from other guys I'd dated. He never made shallow comments about my appearance, never pushed me to wear makeup or dress differently. But now I'm wondering if what I took for respect was actually something much worse. Jake has this way of giving compliments that always felt off. Instead of calling me beautiful, he'd say I had interesting features that grow on you. When I wore a dress I felt confident in, he'd comment that I make unconventional choices work. At first I told myself these were more meaningful than typical compliments. He was seeing beyond surface-level beauty, right? He was appreciating something deeper. The comments got more frequent lately. Last week, he told his coworker that I wasn't traditionally pretty, but had character in my face. When I brought up how that made me feel, he said I was being too sensitive, that his compliments were more thoughtful than just calling someone hot. He made me feel shallow for wanting to feel beautiful. Tonight was my breaking point. We were having dinner with his friends at his place. He recently inherited his grandmother's house and loves hosting now. The conversation somehow turned to types of beauty, and Jake started giving examples. He mentioned that his ex-girlfriend Brittany was classically beautiful, you know, the kind that photographs well, while I was sitting right there. Then he looked at me and said, "But Sarah has the kind of face that's more interesting the longer you look at it. It grows on you." His friends got quiet. I excused myself to use the bathroom and just sat on the edge of his bathtub trying not to cry. When I came back, I could tell they'd been talking about what he said because everyone was being overly nice to me. I made it through dinner, but I felt invisible, like I was watching my boyfriend explain to his friends why he settled for someone less attractive. After everyone left, I was helping clean up when I noticed his laptop was open on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping, I was just moving it so I could wipe down the surface. But the screen was on and I could see he had a folder open labeled B Photos. I know I shouldn't have looked, I know it was wrong, but I clicked on it. It was full of photos of Brittany, not just old photos from when they dated 2 years ago, but recent ones. Screenshots from her Instagram, her LinkedIn headshot, photos from what looked like dating apps. There were dozens of them, some saved as recently as last week. I scrolled through them feeling sick, seeing this woman who looked like she could be a model, perfect skin, perfect smile, perfect everything. That's when I understood what Jake meant by classically beautiful. And I understood what he meant about my face growing on you. He'd been comparing me to her this whole time, measuring me against someone who looked nothing like me and finding me lacking. I closed the laptop and finished cleaning in silence. Jake was in the shower, humming like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just spent the evening explaining to his friends why his girlfriend wasn't as pretty as his ex, while keeping a digital shrine to that same ex on his computer. I told him I needed to go home to Maya's place to work on a project early tomorrow. He barely looked up from his phone when I kissed him goodbye. I don't think he even noticed I was upset. Now I'm sitting here wondering if I'm losing my mind. Is it normal for guys to keep photos of their exes? Am I overreacting to his comments? Part of me wants to confront him, but another part is terrified he'll just confirm what I already suspect, that he's been settling for me while wishing he could have her back. I worked so hard to build my confidence, to stop comparing myself to other women, to believe I could be beautiful in my own way. But 8 months of interesting features and grows on you has undone years of progress. I look in the mirror now and see everything wrong, everything that doesn't measure up to classical beauty, everything that needs to grow on someone instead of just being immediately worthy of love. Maya is asleep, so I can't talk to her until morning. I just needed to tell someone, even if it's strangers on the internet. Has anyone else dealt with this? When someone claims they're giving you deeper compliments, but it just makes you feel worse about yourself. When you find evidence that confirms your worst fears about how your partner sees you, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I don't know if I can pretend everything is normal when I know he has a folder of his ex's photos on his computer and thinks my face needs time to grow on people. I don't know if I can keep being grateful for scraps of affection disguised as intellectual appreciation. Maybe I should just be happy that someone wants to be with me at all, even if I'm not classically beautiful. Maybe I'm being too sensitive, like he always says. But God, I'm so tired of feeling like I'm not enough, like I'm the consolation prize in my own relationship. So Reddit, am I overreacting? Should I confront him about the photos? Or should I just accept that this is what love looks like when you're not the beautiful sister, not the ex-girlfriend he still thinks about, just the girl whose face grows on you if you look long enough? I need to decide what to do before I lose my nerve completely. Update 1. Hi Reddit. Thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. Your support gave me the courage to confront Jake, but what I discovered was so much worse than I expected. I went to his place 3 days later, planning to have an honest conversation about his comments and the photos I'd found. I thought maybe we could work through it if he understood how much he was hurting me. I was wrong. When I explained how his compliments made me feel, Jake got immediately defensive. I can't believe you're making this about you being insecure again, he said. I give you meaningful compliments instead of shallow ones. Most guys would just lie and call you gorgeous without thinking about it. That word hit me like a slap. He couldn't even say gorgeous about me hypothetically. Then I brought up the photos. Jake's whole demeanor changed, got cold in a way I'd never seen. You went through my computer, those photos are there for closure. Sometimes I need to remind myself why that relationship ended. Closure from photos you saved last week, I asked. He paused too long. It's complicated, you wouldn't understand. That's when he admitted he'd been in contact with Brittany. Just occasionally, he said. She moved back to Portland a few months ago. She went through a breakup recently and I offered some friendly support. A few months ago, right when his backhanded compliments had gotten worse, I told him I needed time to think and he didn't even try to stop me, just said, "Let me know when you're ready to be rational about this." Maya was furious when I told her everything. "We need to know exactly what's been going on," she said. She has mutual friends with Jake, so we did some digging. What we found made me sick. Jake has been liking every single one of Brittany's Instagram posts since she moved back, usually within minutes. When she posted about her breakup 6 weeks ago, he commented with a heart emoji, "And you deserve so much better." 6 weeks ago. While he was telling me I had unconventional beauty, he was sliding into his ex's comments with heart emojis. Maya's friend also told us Jake had been asking around about Brittany for months, wanting to know if she was seeing anyone. And here's the part that broke me. When asked how things were going with me, Jake said we were figuring things out, and he wasn't sure about long-term compatibility. This was before our fight. He'd been questioning our relationship while I thought we were building something real. I felt so stupid. While I was falling in love, grateful for his intellectual compliments, he was treating me like a placeholder, someone to pass time with while he figured out if he could get his ex back. The worst part is how it's messed with my head again. I find myself looking at Brittany's photos, comparing every feature. Her straight nose to my crooked one, her clear skin to my freckles, her perfect face to my interesting features. I know I shouldn't do this to myself, but it's hard not to wonder what it would feel like to be someone's first choice instead of their grows on you option. Jake's texted a few times asking if I'm done being dramatic and saying he misses me. Nothing about apologizing or explaining, just irritation that I'm not getting over it fast enough. Maya thinks I should break up with him immediately. He's been emotionally cheating and tearing down your self-esteem while doing it, she said. That's not love, Sarah. That's manipulation. She's probably right, but I keep second-guessing myself. What if I'm being too sensitive? What if this is just how relationships work when you're not the most beautiful person in the room? I have a work conference next week that requires travel. Maybe some distance will help me see things clearly. Or maybe I already know what I need to do, and I'm just scared to do it. I'll update again after I figure out my next steps. Thank you for understanding that this isn't just about being insecure, it's about being with someone who makes you feel like you're not enough, every single day. Update 2. Reddit. I'm shaking as I write this. What I discovered this week has completely shattered any remaining doubt I had about Jake's true feelings. I need to get this all out before I lose my nerve about what I'm planning to do next. After my last update, I went on that work conference feeling confused and heartbroken, but something shifted while I was away. Maybe it was the distance, or maybe it was finally being around colleagues who treated me with basic respect, but I came back angry instead of sad. Maya had been doing more digging while I was gone. She found out that Jake had been telling people we were taking a break, instead of that I was traveling for work. A break. Like our relationship was some casual thing he could pause whenever convenient. That's when I decided I needed to know the full truth about what Jake would do if he thought I wasn't coming back. I know some of you will think what I did next was wrong, but I had to know. Maya and I came up with a plan. I told Jake I needed to extend my trip by a week to help my dad with some family emergency stuff. Complete lie, I was actually staying at Maya's apartment, working remotely. The plan was simple: give Jake a week thinking I was out of town and see what he'd do with that freedom. Maya's friend agreed to keep an eye on his social media activity and report back. I didn't have to wait long. Within 2 days, Jake had reached out to Brittany. Maya's friend saw him comment on her latest Instagram post, not just a like this time, but a full comment about how stunning she looked and asking if she wanted to grab coffee and catch up properly. Stunning. The word he'd never once used to describe me. They met for coffee on Wednesday. Maya's friend happened to be at the same cafe, totally by coincidence, she swears, and said they sat there for 3 hours. Jake was animated in a way I'd never seen him, leaning forward, laughing, touching Brittany's hand across the table. Thursday, they met for dinner. A real dinner at the nice Italian place Jake had never taken me to because he said it was overpriced for what you get. Friday night, Brittany's car was parked outside Jake's house until Saturday morning. I have photos of everything. Maya's friend documented it all, and I spent Friday night sitting in Maya's car across from Jake's street, watching the lights go on and off in the bedroom where I used to sleep. The bedroom I'd helped him repaint just last month because he wanted to make the space more ours. But here's the part that finally broke me completely. Maya's friend overheard Jake on the phone Saturday morning while Brittany was still there. He was talking to his buddy Marcus, and he said, "I have this recorded because Maya's friend was quick with her phone. I think I was just settling with Sarah, you know. Being with Brittany again reminded me what it feels like to be with someone you're actually attracted to. Sarah was just a placeholder while I figured my shit out. A placeholder." After 8 months of telling me I was special, that my beauty was more meaningful than conventional prettiness, that my face grew on him, I was just a placeholder. When I heard that recording, something inside me snapped. Not in a sad way, but in a clarifying way. Like suddenly everything made perfect sense, and I knew exactly what I had to do. I called Jake Saturday afternoon, still pretending to be out of town. "Hey babe," I said, "the family stuff is wrapping up. I should be home Monday evening. Miss you." "Oh," he said, and I could hear the panic in his voice. "Monday? I thought you said maybe next week sometime." "Nope, definitely Monday. Can't wait to see you. Maybe we can do something special Tuesday night." Yeah, sure, I'll plan something." He sounded like he was about to throw up. Good, Maya and I spent the weekend planning. Jake thinks I'm coming home Monday night, but I'm actually going to surprise him earlier. Much earlier. See, Jake has been planning a housewarming party for next Saturday. He sent out invitations while I was supposedly dealing with my family emergency, never mentioning that his girlfriend would be back in town. When Maya's friend asked if I'd be there, Jake said probably not, that I was dealing with some family drama and might not be up for socializing. But I'm going to be there, with evidence, with witnesses, with a speech I've been practicing all weekend. I know some of you will say I should just break up with him quietly, take the high road, walk away with dignity. But you know what? I tried dignity. I tried understanding. I tried being the cool girlfriend who doesn't get jealous or make demands. And where did it get me? 8 months of backhanded compliments while he pined for his ex. 8 months of being made to feel grateful for scraps of affection. 8 months of being someone's placeholder while they figured out if they could do better. Jake wants to keep me as his backup plan while he pursues Brittany. Fine. But he's going to have to own that choice in front of everyone who matters to him. I'm done being the girl whose beauty grows on people. I'm done accepting interesting features as a compliment. I'm done being grateful for being chosen by someone who never really chose me at all. Saturday can't come fast enough. Update 3, Reddit, I did it. I can't believe I actually went through with it, but I did. And honestly, it was even better than I imagined. First, let me address the elephant in the room. Yes, I know some of you thought I was going too far. But after everything Jake put me through, after 8 months of systematically destroying my self-esteem while chasing his ex behind my back, I have zero regrets about what I did. Saturday arrived, and I was ready. Maya came with me for moral support, and we got to Jake's house about an hour after the party started. I could hear music and laughter from the street. He was having a great time celebrating his new life without his placeholder girlfriend. I walked in like I owned the place, which technically I kind of did since I'd helped him decorate most of it. Jake's face, when he saw me, was priceless, pure panic mixed with guilt. He rushed over immediately. "Sarah, I thought you weren't coming back until tomorrow." "Surprise," I said sweetly. "I managed to wrap things up early. Hope you don't mind me crashing your party." He was sweating. "Of course not, I'm just surprised. You said Monday night." "Plans change," I replied, scanning the room. About 20 people were there, including several of our mutual friends and some of his coworkers. Perfect audience size. I mingled for about 30 minutes, letting Jake squirm. He kept hovering near me, clearly terrified about what I might say or do. Every few minutes he'd ask if I wanted to go somewhere quiet to talk, but I just smiled and said I was having fun meeting everyone. Then Brittany arrived. I have to give Jake credit, his poker face was incredible for about 3 seconds. But I watched the color drain from his face when she walked in. She looked confused too, clearly not expecting to see me there. Jake had obviously told her I wouldn't be coming. That's when I made my move. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, raising my voice just enough to get attention. "I know this is Jake's housewarming party, but I hope you don't mind if I share something important." The room got quiet. Jake stepped toward me. "Sarah, maybe we should." "No, Jake, I think everyone should hear this." I pulled out my phone where I had screenshots ready. "See, I just got back from a work trip, and I discovered something interesting about my boyfriend's activities while I was gone." Jake's friend Marcus tried to intervene. "Maybe this is something you two should discuss privately." "Oh, but Jake doesn't like privacy," I said. "He prefers to discuss our relationship with other people. Like when he told you I was just a placeholder while he figured out his feelings for his ex." The room got dead silent. Jake's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Or when he told everyone we were taking a break instead of mentioning I was traveling for work. Or when he spent 3 nights this week with Brittany here," I gestured toward her, "while telling me he missed me and couldn't wait for me to come home." Brittany looked mortified. "Jake, you said you were single. You said you broke up months ago." "I can prove everything," I continued, holding up my phone. "Photos of your car at his house, Jake. Screenshots of you calling me a placeholder. Voice recordings of you telling Marcus that being with Brittany reminded you what it's like to be with someone you're actually attracted to." The room erupted in whispers. Someone said, "Holy shit," loud enough for everyone to hear. Jake finally found his voice. "Sarah, you're being crazy. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" I asked, my voice getting stronger. "Because I think the embarrassing part is dating someone for 8 months while telling them their face grows on you and they have interesting features instead of just admitting you're not attracted to them. I think the embarrassing part is keeping a folder of your ex's photos on your computer while your girlfriend helps you decorate your house." Several people were recording with their phones now. "You want to know what's really embarrassing, Jake? It's that I spent 8 months grateful for your backhanded compliments. 8 months thinking, unique beauty, was somehow better than being called pretty. 8 months believing that someone who made me feel ugly was actually seeing something deeper in me. My voice was getting stronger with every word. But you know what I learned this week? I don't need to grow on anyone. I don't need someone to learn to find me attractive over time. I deserve someone who looks at me and thinks I'm beautiful, not someone who keeps me around as a consolation prize while chasing after their ex. Jake tried one more time. Sarah, please, you're misunderstanding everything. Am I misunderstanding the recording where you called me a placeholder? Am I misunderstanding Brittany sleeping over while you told me you missed me? Which part am I misunderstanding, Jake? He had nothing. Absolutely nothing. I turned to address the room one final time. I'm sorry for disrupting your party, everyone. But I wanted you all to know the truth about the man you're celebrating tonight. He's someone who will make you feel grateful for crumbs while he saves the real feast for someone else. Then I walked out. Maya followed me, and we could hear the explosion of voices behind us as everyone started talking at once. The aftermath has been incredible. Within hours, Jake was getting calls from friends asking what the hell was wrong with him. His coworker Rachel texted me to say she'd always thought his comments about my appearance were weird, and she was glad I stood up for myself. 3 of his friends have reached out to apologize for not speaking up when he made those comments about me in front of them. Marcus sent a long message saying he'd been uncomfortable with Jake calling me a placeholder, but hadn't known how to address it. Jake has been blowing up my phone with texts ranging from angry, "You humiliated me in front of everyone," to pathetic, "I love you, please let me explain," to manipulative, "I'm worried about your mental health, this isn't like you." I blocked him on everything yesterday, but not before sending one final message. What I did wasn't a breakdown, Jake. It was a calculated decision to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. You spent 8 months making me feel crazy for having normal reactions to abnormal treatment. That ends now. Brittany actually reached out to thank me. She said she felt terrible about the whole situation and that Jake had completely lied to her about our relationship status. We ended up having coffee, and she's nothing like I'd imagined. She's dealing with her own feelings of being manipulated by him. The best part: Jake's having to sell his grandmother's house. Several friends have distanced themselves from him after Saturday night, and he's lost at least 3 freelance clients who were at the party or heard about what happened. He can't afford the mortgage without his full client base. As for me, I feel incredible. For the first time in 8 months, I woke up this morning and looked in the mirror without immediately cataloging my flaws. I saw a woman who stood up for herself, who refused to accept being treated as less than she deserves. I'm back in therapy, not because I'm broken, but because I want to understand how I accepted treatment like that for so long. My therapist says what Jake did was emotional abuse designed to keep me insecure and grateful for his attention. I also have a date next week. A guy from my gym asked me out, and when I mentioned I was nervous because I'd recently gotten out of a relationship where I felt unattractive, he looked genuinely confused and said, "Are you kidding? You're gorgeous." Not unique, not interesting, gorgeous. It felt amazing to hear that word applied to me without qualifiers. I know some of you will think I went too far with the public confrontation, but I don't care. Jake spent 8 months systematically destroying my self-worth while lying to me and emotionally cheating. He deserved to face consequences for that behavior. To anyone reading this who recognizes themselves in my story, you deserve better. You deserve someone who thinks you're beautiful, not someone who makes you feel grateful for being tolerated. You deserve someone who chooses you first, not someone who keeps you around while they figure out if they can do better. Don't settle for being someone's grows on you option. You're worth so much more than that. Thank you, Reddit, for helping me find my courage. I couldn't have done this without your support. Story 4. My fiancé said, "I'm just better with money than most people." I believed her completely. When I discovered her 120K hidden debt, I told her, "You're absolutely right about being better with money," and canceled our 80K wedding. She begged me not to tell our families who were helping pay for it, but I forwarded them her bankruptcy paperwork instead. Here's how I found out about the lies. Thursday afternoon, our wedding venue called and said we're denied due to her defaulted student loans. "Sorry, but we can't approve your application. There are significant delinquent debts that make you high risk." I'm standing there confused as hell. Jessica's right next to me and she just went pale, like actually pale. Started stammering about mistakes and identity theft. But I could see panic in her eyes. See, Jessica always bragged about paying off her student loans early. I'm just better with money than most people. That's why I paid everything off years early. She'd show me screenshots of big payments, saying, there goes another chunk. Looking back, the job hopping should have been a red flag. 4 companies in 2 years. She'd always come home excited about moving up or getting better opportunities. Marketing coordinator to senior marketing specialist to marketing manager. Each time she'd celebrate with expensive dinners that I'd end up paying for. I'm climbing the ladder so fast because I'm actually good at what I do, she'd say. Unlike most people who just coast. I thought I was dating someone ambitious. Turns out she was just staying ahead of wage garnishment orders. That night I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m. I grabbed my phone and checked our credit monitoring app. My profile looked fine. Jessica's showed $120,483 in defaulted student loan debt. Defaulted 2 years and 3 months ago. 2 damn years. She'd been lying basically our entire relationship. Friday morning, I confronted her during our cake tasting appointment, because apparently we're still pretending we're having a wedding. Jess, what's going on with your student loans? She froze with red velvet cake halfway to her mouth. What do you mean? I mean the $120K in defaulted debt on your credit report. The cake fell off her fork. Started crying right there in this upscale bakery with classical music playing and other couples looking at wedding cakes. I can explain. I was gonna tell you, I just needed more time. You've had 2 years to tell me. It's not that simple. I tried to handle it myself. I didn't want to burden you. Burden me. We're supposed to get married in 4 months. The baker came back with more samples and immediately sensed the tension. We just sat there in silence while he explained buttercream flavors. More time? You've had 2 years, Jessica. Took an hour in my car to get the truth. She never paid off anything. Those screenshots of big payments, transfers between checking and savings that she'd reverse the next day. But here's the kicker. That wedding fund she'd saved, $25,000 from cash advances on maxed-out credit cards. I was gonna use wedding gift money to get caught up, she said. People give like $20K in cash at weddings. She was planning to pay off her lies with money our families gave us to celebrate our marriage. Monday morning, I called in sick. We spent the day going through everything. Credit card debt was $35K across 4 cards, all maxed. Original student loan was $87K, but with 2 years of penalties, it was over $130K. And they'd started legal proceedings. Legal proceedings? She got served for wage garnishment 3 months ago, quit her job the next week. Tuesday afternoon, I made a list of wedding deposits. Venue, $5K. Photographer, $2K. Florist, $800. Caterer, $3,500. Most from her credit card cash advances. Wednesday morning, I get this text from our friend Mike. Hey man, weird question, but did Jessica mention borrowing money from other people? Sarah just told me she lent her $1,500 last month for some emergency. My stomach dropped, started making calls. David, $800 for car repairs 6 weeks ago. She said her transmission was going out and she needed it fixed to get to work. I felt bad because she always talked about how responsible she was with money. Lisa, $1,200 for medical bills. She told me she had some dental emergency and her insurance wouldn't cover it. I even offered to go with her to the dentist for support. Emma, $2K for helping her mom. She said her mom was behind on rent and might get evicted. I thought it was sweet that she was helping family. Each person thought they were the only one. Each got a different sob story tailored to what would make them most likely to say yes. David loves cars, so she picked car trouble. Lisa works in healthcare, so medical emergency. Emma's close with her family, so family crisis. Total, $6,500 borrowed from friends with zero intention of paying back. Thursday, Jessica's mom calls me. Ryan, honey, we got the strangest call from some debt collection place asking about Jessica and a wedding venue. Something about co-signing? Damn. When we applied for the venue, Jessica listed her parents as references. When our credit check failed, venue reached out asking if they'd co-sign. Her parents had no clue. Far as they knew, she was debt-free. Her dad went quiet for a long time. We've been saving to help with this wedding, 2 years of putting money aside. They'd saved $15K to help their daughter celebrate what they thought was a fresh start. Friday, the vendors started calling. Catering company first, we need the remaining balance paid in full. Our credit services flagged concerns. Remaining balance, $8,500, due immediately. Then photographer, I'm sorry but we're going to need full payment before the wedding date. Company policy for high-risk clients. Then florist, can you come in this week to discuss payment options? We need to secure the order. Then DJ. Even the damn DJ wanted money up front now. Then the dress shop called. Miss Johnson, we need to discuss your final payment schedule. One by one, every vendor demanding full payment up front. Word travels fast in the wedding industry apparently. They all use the same credit checking service. Jessica completely broke down. I can fix it. I just need more time. Time to do what? She owed more than we made in 2 years. Saturday morning, we met with a bankruptcy attorney instead of doing dress fittings. The lawyer reviewed Jessica's paperwork for 20 minutes without saying anything, finally looked up. This is a straightforward Chapter 7 case. Most of this unsecured debt will be discharged. What about the wedding? Jessica asked. The lawyer looked confused. You're planning a wedding during bankruptcy proceedings. We already put deposits down. Ma'am, large expenditures during bankruptcy get scrutinized heavily. An $80K wedding definitely qualifies as a luxury expense. But we've been planning this for months. The bankruptcy trustee will want to know why you're spending $80,000 on a party when you owe $150,000 to creditors. Jessica started crying again. So what are our options? Cancel the wedding entirely. Or have a very small courthouse ceremony under $2,000 and hope the trustee doesn't object. What about our deposits? Those are gone either way. You can't use bankruptcy to pay for wedding expenses. Our options: cancel entirely or small courthouse ceremony. Jessica stared at the floor the whole drive home. Update 1. Monday I went back to work. Around lunch Jessica calls crying. The venue called. They're keeping our deposit and canceling. $5,000 gone. And caterer wants their money by end of business or they're canceling too. Ryan, can you ask your parents for help just to get through this? I hung up. She was still asking other people to pay for her lies. That evening I called David, Mike, Lisa, and Emma, asked them to meet at a bar, laid it all out. Hidden debt, bankruptcy, pattern of borrowing with different stories. David was the first to speak. Wait, she told me she was financially responsible, like she'd lecture me about my spending habits. She criticized my credit card debt last month, Mike added, said I needed to be more disciplined like her. Lisa was furious. $1,200 for medical bills. I felt guilty for months thinking she had health problems. I even brought her soup when she said she was recovering from the procedure. What procedure? Emma asked. Exactly, there was no procedure. Emma looked stunned. She told me her mom was about to be evicted. I stayed up all night worried about Jessica's family being homeless. Her mom lives in a paid-off house, I said. We sat there for a minute processing how extensive the lies were. So we're all out money we'll never see again, David summarized. And she's been lying to literally everyone for years, Lisa added. They all wanted their money back but understood it wasn't happening soon. Tuesday, Jessica's parents came over. They'd spent the weekend with their financial advisor and doing their own research. We looked up everything online, her mom said. Student loan default, credit reports, all of it. We had no idea it was this bad. We can't enable this anymore, her dad said. We love Jessica, but we can't keep bailing her out. You've bailout her out before? I asked. Her parents looked at each other. The security deposit for her apartment 2 years ago, car repairs last year, emergency dental work 6 months ago. All lies. I'd been to her apartment. She never paid a security deposit because she moved in with a roommate who already lived there. I'd seen her dental checkup results, perfect teeth. The car repairs were probably just regular maintenance she didn't want to pay for. How much? I asked. About $8,000 over the past 2 years, her dad said quietly. Turns out this wasn't the first time. They'd helped with emergencies multiple times. What they thought were one-time problems were consequences of her debt spiral. The wedding money we saved, we're putting it toward professional counseling instead, her mom said. Real help, not another band-aid. Jessica started crying. So you're giving up on me too? We're not giving up, but we're not pretending this isn't happening anymore. Ryan's abandoning me and now you are too. Honey, her mom said. Ryan didn't abandon you. You lied to him for 2 years. Wednesday, I called my parents, told them everything. Do you want to stay with her? Dad asked. I didn't know. Because if you do, you both need professional help. This isn't just about money. They offered to help whatever I decided, but weren't contributing to any wedding until Jessica got help. By Thursday, word spread through our friend group. People comparing notes, figuring out who else got asked for money. Turns out Jessica borrowed from 8 people over the past year, between 300 to 2K each, total over 9K. Our group chat split into Team Jessica and Team Ryan. Worst part was people asking if I knew, like maybe I was part of some scheme. Did you know she owed David money when you asked him to be groomsman? No, I didn't know she owed anyone money. Felt like I was defending myself for being lied to. Friday morning, Jessica didn't go to work. When her manager called, she admitted everything and quit over the phone. Later, I found out the full story from her coworker who I'd met at office parties. The garnishment order had been served to HR the week before. They called Jessica in for a meeting about it. She tried to claim it was identity theft, the coworker told me. Said someone must have taken out loans in her name, but HR said the paperwork showed the loans were from years ago, before we even hired her. So she quit rather than deal with it. She had to. The garnishment was for 25% of her paycheck. With her salary, that would have been like $600 per pay period. How long had you known about the money problems? We didn't know specifics, but she was always asking to borrow lunch money or gas money, small amounts, made it seem like she just forgot her wallet. There'd been a garnishment order served the week before. She was planning to quit anyway, but the collection agency was getting aggressive. Without income, she couldn't contribute to household expenses anymore. Her half of rent, utilities, groceries all fell to me. And she still owed vendors thousands for a wedding that was never happening. Update 2. Next week, Jessica started getting calls from debt collectors. They wanted to settle before bankruptcy. One offered to settle $87K in student loans for $35K if paid in 30 days. We could ask our parents, she suggested. Maybe they could loan us settlement money. Jessica, you want our parents to give us $35K to pay off debt you hid for 2 years. It's better than bankruptcy. My credit would recover faster. She still didn't get that this wasn't about credit scores. Going through Jessica's paperwork, found something worse. She'd been paying $400 a month for useless supplemental insurance because the salesman said it would help her credit score. $400 a month, while borrowing from friends for emergencies. But that wasn't all. I found a folder of credit card applications she'd been denied for over the past year. Dozens of them. Store cards, gas cards, anything she could apply for trying to get more credit. And bank statements showing overdraft fees almost every month. She'd been living paycheck to paycheck while telling everyone she was financially responsible. There was even a notebook where she'd written down different stories for borrowing money. Car problems David and Mike, car guys. Medical Lisa, nurse, sympathetic. Family emergency Emma, close to family. She'd literally planned out who to manipulate based on their personalities. Jessica's parents found a financial counselor who specialized in debt crisis. Offered to pay if Jessica committed to going. Counselor's first recommendation after reviewing everything: complete financial transparency with everyone affected. Secrets about money this significant kill relationships, she told us in the one session I attended. Trust has to be rebuilt from zero. But I've already told everyone the basics, Jessica protested. No, you've told everyone pieces. Ryan still doesn't know how long you've been planning to use wedding gift money. Your friends don't know how many other people you borrowed from. Your parents don't know about the fake bank transfers. I can't tell them everything, they'll hate me. They might, but they definitely can't trust you if you keep controlling what they know. Jessica balked, didn't want to tell friends exactly how much she owed or admit to family how long she'd been lying. They don't need to know everything. This is exactly the thinking that got you here, the counselor said. You keep deciding what other people need to know about their own lives. Even in therapy, still trying to control the narrative. 3 weeks after venue cancellation, final bills came in. Photographer keeping $2K deposit but waiving rest. Florist wanted another $1,200 or collections. DJ willing to work something out for $500 immediately. Caterer wanted full $8,500. Jessica begged me to help negotiate. You're good with numbers, maybe work out payment plans. But I was done being her financial cleanup crew. After a month of crisis management, I made my choice. Packed my stuff, moved back with parents, told Jessica I needed space. Honestly, though, I already knew wasn't just the money, was years of lies, manipulation of friends, willingness to let families pay for her deception. Most of all, her continued belief that other people should solve her problems. Final update: Jessica filed bankruptcy 6 weeks later. Most debt got discharged, but credit destroyed for 7 years. The bankruptcy trustee did question the wedding expenses during the hearing. Jessica had to explain why she'd been planning an $80K wedding while owing $150K to creditors. The trustee was not impressed. Miss Johnson, this shows a pattern of financial irresponsibility that concerns the court. All the vendor deposits were considered fraudulent transfers since she'd used credit card cash advances. The trustee made her provide documentation for every wedding expense. Moved back with parents, got part-time retail job at a department store. 26 years old, living at home, working retail, credit destroyed. Supposed to be in financial counseling, but from what I hear through her sister, she misses more sessions than she attends. Still blames everyone else for her situation. Friend group still weird. Some stayed in touch, others didn't. David and Mike are civil but distant when we all hang out. Lisa won't speak to her at all and leaves group events if Jessica shows up. Emma tried to maintain the friendship for a while, but gave up after Jessica asked to borrow money again 3 months later. Jessica's parents are paying back the friends she borrowed from, little by little. They felt responsible even though they didn't know what was happening. They've paid back David and Lisa in full, still working on Emma's 2K. Her dad told me later they spent their entire wedding savings fund on paying back her debts to our friends. We couldn't let innocent people suffer for our daughter's choices. I'm still with my parents, saving money, rebuilding goals. Wedding fund I saved is going toward house down payment just for me. I don't hate Jessica. Think she got overwhelmed, then got in too deep to find a way out. But I can't build a life with someone who thinks lying is a viable strategy. Thanks for support and advice. This was therapeutic to write even though painful to relive. Hope sharing helps someone recognize warning signs earlier than I did. Edit. People asking about legal stuff since we weren't married. I'm not liable for her debt. Wedding vendor debts are in her name. I lost about $3K in deposits, but that's way better than being legally tied to someone with six-figure debt and deception history. Story 5, Move to my hometown or you don't really love me. My fiancé announced days before our wedding day. I said, then I guess I don't. She found the engagement ring on the wedding day and I was already gone. My name's Jason, 31, and I run a marketing consulting firm in Denver. Nothing fancy. Just me and 2 part-time contractors working with local businesses. It took me 6 years to build this client base from nothing. 6 years of networking events, coffee meetings, proving myself to skeptical business owners who'd been burned by other consultants. Ashley and I met at Colorado State 8 years ago. She was this bright, ambitious girl from some tiny Nebraska town, Millfield. Her family was old-school traditional. Ashley was the first in her family to go to college. Those first few years were amazing. She got a job at a nonprofit. I was grinding to get my business off the ground. We supported each other through everything. I believed we were a team, but something shifted after we got engaged last year. She started talking more and more about how much she missed home, how her parents were getting older, how her sister Emma just had a baby and Ashley was missing all these family moments. I got it, I really did. Family's important. But every conversation somehow turned into how isolated she felt in Denver, how artificial city life was compared to real community back home. You don't understand, she'd say when I tried to relate. You grew up here, I left everything behind. She wasn't wrong. I did have roots here. That was kind of the point. My clients trusted me because I understood the Denver market, because I'd been part of the community for years. The first red flag should have been when she started calling my work your little business. Like it was some cute hobby instead of the thing that paid for our apartment, our vacations, the engagement ring on her finger. I'd remind her that I was doing well, that I was planning to expand, maybe hire full-time employees. She'd just smile that patient smile, like I was being naive. I should have seen it coming, but I was blindsided when she dropped the bomb 2 weeks before our wedding. We were at Romano's, our usual Italian place, going over last-minute wedding details. Everything seemed normal. She was excited about the flowers, worried about the weather forecast. Then, out of nowhere, "I've been thinking about after the honeymoon," she said, cutting into her chicken parmigiana. "I want us to move to Millfield." I literally stopped chewing. "What?" "I want to move home, Jason, right after we get back from Maui. My dad talked to his friend who owns the real estate office. They're looking for someone to help with marketing. You could do that." My stomach dropped. "Ashley, I can't just pack up and move to Nebraska. My entire business is here." "It's not like you have some huge corporation," she said, not looking up from her plate. "You work from your laptop mostly anyway." "That's not how it works." I could hear my voice getting tight. "I have clients here, relationships I've built over years. I can't service Denver businesses from 500 miles away." "So you get new clients. Millfield has businesses too." "Millfield has like 3,000 people, Ashley. Denver has 3 million. The market here is worth 50 times what I could ever build there." She finally looked at me and her expression was cold. "So that's it? Your precious business is more important than being near my family?" "That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is a huge decision. We need to plan this properly. If I just abandon everything here, we'd be starting over financially. It could take years to build up income again. How would we pay for a house? Kids? We'll figure it out." People lived in small towns long before fancy marketing consultants existed. That's when I knew she didn't respect what I did, at all. 6 years of building relationships, learning industries, developing expertise. But to her, it was all disposable. "I need you to understand something," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "This isn't just a job to me. This is everything I've worked for since college." "And I need you to understand something," she shot back. "I've been away from my family for 8 years. 8 years of missing everything important because I chose to build a life here with you. Now I'm asking you to choose me back. This isn't choosing you. This is choosing to destroy everything I've built." Her eyes filled with tears, but they looked more like angry tears than sad ones. "If you really loved me, you'd want to be near the people who raised me. You'd want our children to know their grandparents. Ashley, your family is wonderful. I love spending time with them. But asking me to move there permanently, with no discussion, no planning, no consideration for my career, that's not fair." "Fair?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What's fair is that I've supported your dreams for 6 years. I've been patient while you worked late nights and weekends. I've smiled through networking events where I don't know anyone. I've built my whole life around your schedule. And I've appreciated every bit of that, but I never asked you to sacrifice your career. You chose a nonprofit job you love. I've never suggested you should quit. That's different. My job doesn't control our entire life." There it was, the real issue. She saw my work as selfish, demanding, something that took me away from her instead of something that provided for our future. "Look," I said, trying one more time. "What if we compromise? What if we plan to move there in 2 or 3 years? Give me time to transition, maybe develop some remote capabilities, save up money so we're not struggling when we make the switch." "No, Jason, I'm done compromising. I'm done putting my needs second. We move to my hometown after the honeymoon, or you should start question yourself if you really love me." The threat was crystal clear. Do what I want or lose me entirely. I stared at her across the table, this woman I'd planned to spend my life with, and felt something fundamental break inside me. "Then I guess I don't," I said quietly. "What's that supposed to mean?" She blinked, her voice caught somewhere between disbelief and anger. "If loving you means accepting that the career I built from scratch with my own hands is dismissed as unimportant, or that I have to sacrifice it without anything offered in return, then I guess I really don't." Her face went white, then red, then white again. "You don't mean that." I looked at this woman I'd loved for 8 years, who was asking me to throw away everything I'd worked for, and felt a strange calm settle over me. "I think I do," I said. She started crying then, real tears this time. "Jason, please, I just want us to be near my family. I want our kids to grow up around their cousins. I want Sunday dinners with my parents and summer barbecues and all the things I gave up when I moved here. And I want those things too, Ashley, but not at the cost of destroying everything I've built, not without any consideration for what this would mean for our future. We can build a new future there. I can't, not the way you're demanding." She wiped her eyes with her napkin. "So what happens now?" I pulled out my wallet and put money on the table. "Now I think we both need some time to think about what we really want. The wedding is in 2 weeks." "I know." I left her sitting there and drove home to our apartment, my head spinning. 2 weeks before our wedding, and everything had just fallen apart. That night, Ashley came home trying to act like nothing had happened. She talked about the final headcount for the reception, whether we needed more wine for the rehearsal dinner. I played along, but inside I was reeling. Over the next few days, she kept bringing up Millfield casually. "My mom says the elementary school is hiring a PE teacher. Great benefits." Dad mentioned the hardware store might be looking for help with their website. But every time I tried to sit down and have an honest, serious conversation about moving there, really talk about it together, it would turn into an argument. Without fail, she'd accuse me of being selfish, of not caring about her needs, of refusing to understand. But it wasn't love she was asking for. It was capitulation. A week before the wedding, I made my decision. This wasn't going anywhere. Talking didn't help. Reasoning didn't matter. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't marry someone who turned every disagreement into a personal attack. I couldn't marry someone who fundamentally didn't respect what mattered to me. I started planning my exit like a military operation. I called my business partner, Jenny, and explained the situation. She was shocked but supportive. We worked out a plan for her to handle my clients while I figured out next steps. I found a storage unit across town and started moving my important stuff there after Ashley left for work. I told the landlord I'd be off the lease at the end of the month. The hardest part was the wedding expenses. We'd both contributed, but I'd paid for about 70%, the venue deposit, the photographer, the honeymoon. Almost $40,000 down the drain. But $40,000 to avoid a disastrous marriage. Money well spent. 5 days before the wedding, I got up at 4 in the morning, gathered my last few things, and loaded my car. I slipped the engagement ring off my finger and placed it carefully in the center of our kitchen table. We had agreed early on that I would wear an engagement ring too, a matching one to the ring I'd given her. It would be a symbol of equality, of mutual commitment. I had been so proud explaining it to people, smiling as I said it proved we were a team, that we were building something together. I'd ever imagined it would end up sitting there, right next to the wedding timeline Ashley had left there the night before, like a cruel joke. I hadn't planned to leave a note. I thought the ring alone would say enough. But I stood there for another moment, staring at it all, and then I reached for a pen. That was the least I could do. "Ashley, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I can't be the man you want me to be, and you can't accept the man I am. I can't marry you knowing that you don't respect the career I've built or the life I've chosen. I hope someday you find someone who wants the same life you do. You deserve to be happy, just not with me. I've covered my share of the wedding expenses. Please don't contact me. This decision is final. Jason." I took one last look around the apartment we'd shared for 3 years, then quietly closed the door behind me. I drove straight through to Phoenix, where my college roommate Jake had moved for work. I'd called him around 6 a.m., woken him up, and explained everything in 30 seconds. "Come crash here as long as you need," he'd said without hesitation. My phone started going crazy around noon. Calls from Ashley, her parents, her sister, my own family. I turned it off and spent the day helping Jake organize his garage, trying to keep my hands busy and my mind occupied. 2 days later, when I finally turned it back on, I had over 100 messages. Ashley's messages started pleading and ended furious. "Jason, please call me, we can work this out," became, "You coward, how could you do this to me?" Her dad left me a voicemail that was pure rage. "You've humiliated my daughter and embarrassed our entire family. You'll pay for this, you selfish piece of garbage." Her mom's message was worse, disappointed and hurt. "I thought you were a good man, Jason. I thought you loved our Ashley. How could you do something so cruel?" My own parents were confused and worried. My friends were split between supportive and shocked. I wanted to defend myself, to explain what really happened. But what was the point? Ashley's family would see it as me making excuses for heartless behavior anyway. A week later, I drove back to Denver to deal with the aftermath. The apartment was empty except for the furniture we'd bought together. Ashley had moved back to Nebraska, taking everything that wasn't clearly mine. She'd also taken my grandmother's necklace, a pearl strand that had been in my family for 3 generations. My mother had given it to me to give to Ashley as a wedding gift. Technically, since there was no wedding, it should have been returned. I texted Ashley about it. Her response was ice cold. "You humiliated me. Consider it compensation for the therapy I'll need." That's when I knew I was dealing with someone I'd never really known at all. I threw myself back into work. My clients were understanding about the situation. Most of them had been through divorces or difficult breakups themselves. Business actually picked up as I had more time to focus without wedding planning. But Ashley's family wasn't done with me. 2 weeks after I got back, her brother Jake called me. "You know you destroyed her, right? She can't even get out of bed some days. Mom and Dad are worried sick." "I'm sorry she's hurting," I said, "but I couldn't marry someone who wanted me to give up everything I'd worked for." "Give up what? A little consulting business? You could have done that anywhere." "It's not little to me, Jake. It's my career, my livelihood." And Ashley didn't respect what mattered to me. What matters to you is making money off websites. What mattered to her was having her husband want to be part of her family. There it was again. The dismissal of everything I'd built, the reduction of 6 years of hard work to making money off websites. "Jake," I tried to compromise. I suggested we plan the move gradually, give me time to transition. She refused to discuss it. It was her way or nothing. Because she'd already compromised for 6 years. She built her life around your schedule. She had a right to ask for something back. She had a right to ask. She didn't have a right to demand. The conversation went nowhere. Jake hung up convinced I was selfish, and I was left wondering if everyone in Ashley's family saw my career as worthless. A month later, things escalated. I got a letter from a lawyer representing Ashley's family. They were demanding I pay for the wedding expenses they'd incurred: catering, flowers, her dress, their travel costs. The total was over $15,000. The letter claimed I had willfully breached my promise to marry and caused significant financial and emotional damages. They gave me 30 days to pay or face a lawsuit. I laughed when I read it. This was purely vindictive. They knew I couldn't be legally forced to marry someone, and they knew wedding expenses weren't legally recoverable in cases like this. They were hoping to scare me into paying to make the problem go away. I hired my own lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Wells who specialized in family law. She took one look at their letter and shook her head. "This is harassment," she said, "pure and simple. They're angry and they want to punish you. We'll respond professionally and shut this down." Patricia drafted a response that was polite but firm. She explained that I had no legal obligation to reimburse wedding expenses when an engagement was ended due to irreconcilable differences. She also mentioned that any further harassment would be considered grounds for a restraining order. But then she added something that made me nervous. "By the way, do you have any property of theirs? Because if they're coming after you legally, they might claim you stole something." My blood ran cold. "They have my grandmother's necklace." "Did you give it to her as an engagement gift?" "No, it was supposed to be a wedding gift. Since there was no wedding." "Then it's yours. We need to get it back before this gets messier." I had to laugh at the irony. They were threatening to sue me while keeping stolen property. Patricia sent another letter demanding the return of the necklace. Their lawyer's response was predictable. They claimed it was a gift to Ashley to compensate for her emotional distress. "Emotional distress?" I asked Patricia. "She gave me an ultimatum. When I didn't cave, she's claiming distress." "It doesn't matter. What matters is that necklace was never given as a completed gift. We can prove that." The legal battle dragged on for 3 months, lawyers arguing over a pearl necklace and wedding bills, while Ashley's family painted me as a vindictive ex-fiancé who was harassing a heartbroken girl. The breakthrough came when Patricia got Ashley's family to agree to a mediation session. The idea was to resolve everything without going to court. The mediation was held in a neutral office downtown. Ashley's parents, her lawyer Patricia, and me. Ashley wasn't there. Her lawyer said she was too emotionally fragile to participate. Her father, Tom, looked like he wanted to strangle me. Her mother, Linda, just looked sad and disappointed. This was the family that had welcomed me to holiday dinners and birthday parties for 6 years. Now they saw me as the enemy. Their lawyer started with the same demands: payment for wedding expenses and keeping the necklace as compensation for damages. Patricia calmly explained why neither demand had any legal merit. Then she made her own demand. My client wants his family heirloom returned immediately, and he wants all harassment to stop. In exchange, he won't pursue charges for theft or file a countersuit for harassment. Tom's face turned red. Harassment. He's the one who destroyed our daughter, Mr. Patterson, Patricia said smoothly. Your daughter gave my client an ultimatum that would have required him to abandon his career. My client has right to decline and to end the engagement. She asked him to move to be near family. That's what married couples do. She demanded he immediately relocate and abandon his client base with no discussion or planning. That's not a reasonable request. Linda spoke up for the first time. We just don't understand why he couldn't compromise. Ashley gave up so much to be with him. I looked at this woman who had been like a second mother to me. Linda, I offered to compromise. I suggested we plan the move gradually so I could transition my business properly. Ashley refused to consider it because she was tired of everything being about your work. My work pays for our life together. It's not a hobby, it's how I make a living. You could make a living in Millfield too. There it was again, the fundamental disconnect. To them, my business was just a job that could be done anywhere. They couldn't understand that marketing consulting requires local relationships, market knowledge, years of reputation building. The mediation went in circles for 2 hours. They couldn't understand why I wouldn't sacrifice my career for their daughter's happiness, and I couldn't make them see that marriage shouldn't require that level of sacrifice without discussion. Finally, Patricia cut to the chase. Let's resolve this simply. Return the necklace, drop all financial demands, and agree to no further contact. Everyone walks away clean. Their lawyer huddled with Tom and Linda for several minutes. I could hear heated whispers but couldn't make out words. When they came back, Tom looked defeated. Fine, but we want it on record that this man destroyed our daughter's life. Your daughter's life isn't destroyed, Patricia replied. She's 28 years old, she has a good job, she's surrounded by family who love her. She'll recover and find someone who wants the same things she does. 2 weeks later, a courier delivered the necklace. It was in the original box, untouched. Along with it was a note from Ashley's mother. Jason, I hope you're happy with your choice. Ashley is seeing a therapist and trying to rebuild her life. I pray someday you realize what you threw away. A business can be rebuilt anywhere. True love is irreplaceable. I read the note twice, then put it in my files. Linda still didn't get it, but I was done trying to explain. 6 months later, my business is thriving. I hired Jenny full-time and brought on another contractor. We're looking at expanding into Colorado Springs and maybe Fort Collins. The network I spent 6 years building is paying off in ways I never expected. I still think about Ashley sometimes. I hope she's doing well. I hope she finds someone who wants to live in Millfield, who sees small-town life as perfect rather than limiting. But I don't regret my choice. A marriage built on ultimatums, on one partner dismissing the other's career as insignificant, isn't a marriage worth having. 2 weeks ago, I closed on a house in the Highlands neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I converted the basement into an office with proper lighting and space for multiple workstations. For the first time in years, I'm building something that's completely my own. I hung my grandmother's necklace in a shadow box in my bedroom, not because I'm bitter, but because it reminds me that some things are worth fighting for. Family heirlooms, career achievements, self-respect. Ashley's family painted me as selfish for choosing my business over love, but it was never about the business. It was about choosing mutual respect over ultimatums. It was about refusing to be remodeled into someone else's vision of the perfect husband. I'm 31 years old. I have a successful business, a house I love, and the freedom to build whatever life I want. If that makes me selfish, I can live with that. I turned off my phone that night and haven't looked back since. The silence isn't empty, it's peaceful. It's the sound of a life built on my own terms, with room to grow in whatever direction I choose. And that's worth more than all the family dinners in Nebraska could ever be. Story 6. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but I need to know if I'm losing my mind or if my instincts have been right all along. I'm Amanda, 34, married to Ryan, 36, for 6 years with 4-year-old twin boys. I'm an elementary school principal and Ryan owns a construction company. The problem is Ryan's sister, Sophia, 31. She got divorced 8 months ago, and Ryan has been incredibly supportive, helping her move, letting her stay with us temporarily, being the caring brother. I felt bad for her and tried to be welcoming, but for months something has felt off. Ryan started having more late work dinners. Family gatherings felt different, like there were inside jokes I wasn't part of. Sophia began showing up unannounced, always needing Ryan's help with something. The twins mentioned that Aunt Sophie had been asking them questions about our private conversations. When I mentioned my concerns to Ryan, he said I was being paranoid and that Sophia was just going through a hard time. 3 weeks ago, we went to the family lake house for a long weekend with the entire extended family. On the second day, I was looking for sunscreen in Sophia's guest room when I saw an open leather journal on her nightstand. My name was written on the visible page. I know I shouldn't have, but I looked. What I found made my blood run cold. The journal was titled, "Reclaiming My Rightful Place," and contained a detailed, methodical plan to replace me in the foster family. Page after page outlined how she deserved the life Amanda stumbled into, and how she was the foster daughter-in-law the family really wanted. The entries went back months, documenting her strategy to undermine my relationships with Ryan's family. She had been telling family members I was struggling with mental health issues, and spreading rumors that I was controlling and difficult. Most disturbing, she had detailed plans for seducing Ryan, including specific information about our private conversations and intimate life that she'd somehow obtained. She had been secretly recording conversations at family gatherings and researching our financial situation through her real estate connections. There were even entries about how she could be a better mother figure to my children. The final entry, written the day before, was chilling. "The lake house weekend is perfect timing. Tonight I'll make my move. By the time we leave here, everything will be different." I took photos of every page with shaking hands, then carefully put the journal back exactly where I found it. The rest of the weekend was surreal. I watched Sophia touch Ryan's arm during conversations, lean in close when talking to him, make comments about how natural she looked with my children. I saw my mother-in-law respond warmly to Sophia's manipulations, not knowing every confidence shared was being used against me. I told Ryan I felt sick and needed to leave early. During the drive home alone, I called my best friend Grace, who's a divorce attorney. After hearing everything and seeing the photos, Grace said, "Amanda, this isn't just family drama. This could be stalking and harassment. You need to document everything and be very careful." Now I'm sitting here trying to figure out what to do. Ryan comes home tonight, and I don't know whether to confront him immediately or gather more evidence first. I don't know if he's been manipulated too, or if he's aware of what's happening. Those expensive dinners on our credit card that Ryan claimed were work meetings, I'm betting they were with Sophia. The times he seemed to know about my work problems that I'd only mentioned to family. She was feeding him information to seem more connected to my life. I feel vindicated that my instincts were right, but terrified about what comes next. How do I protect my family from someone who's been systematically working to destroy us from the inside? Am I overreacting to a desperate woman going through a divorce, or is this as calculated and dangerous as it seems? Update 1. The response to my first post was overwhelming. Thank you to everyone who validated that I wasn't crazy and gave me practical advice. Several people suggested I start documenting everything systematically, so that's what I've been doing. What I've discovered is so much worse than I initially thought. Ryan came home that Sunday night, and I decided not to confront him immediately. Instead, I told him I was still feeling under the weather and spent the evening asking casual questions about the rest of the weekend. He mentioned that Sophia had been really emotional after I left and that she'd confided in him about feeling rejected by the family lately. That was my first red flag. I had never rejected Sophia. If anything, I'd been going out of my way to include her. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been paying closer attention to everything, and the pieces are falling into place in the most disturbing way possible. Remember those expensive dinner charges I mentioned? I went through our credit card statements for the past 6 months. There are dozens of charges at upscale restaurants that Ryan claimed were work meetings. But here's the thing: I know his work schedule, and many of these meetings happened on evenings when he told me he was working late on job sites that don't have electricity after dark. When I casually asked about a specific dinner from last month, Ryan got defensive and said it was a family thing to help Sophia network with potential clients. But the restaurant was 40 minutes away from both our house and Sophia's apartment, in a part of town where neither of us has any business connections. This is the part that makes my skin crawl. 3 months ago, I had a difficult situation at work involving a parent complaint that I only discussed with Ryan and my mother-in-law, Carol, during a private phone call. Last week, Sophia made a comment to other family members about how stressful Amanda's job has been lately with all those parent issues. 2 months ago, Ryan and I had an argument about his mother's birthday gift. We disagreed about spending $300 on jewelry, and it was a conversation that happened in our bedroom after the kids were asleep. At Carol's birthday party, Sophia mentioned to Tom's wife Lisa how thoughtful it was that Ryan had to convince Amanda to get his mother something nice. She's been getting information from somewhere, and now I'm terrified it's been from Ryan himself. I started paying attention to how family members interact with me now versus 6 months ago. Carol used to call me directly to chat or ask about the kids. Now she calls Ryan and asks him to pass along messages to me. Lisa used to invite me to girls' nights and shopping trips. The last 3 invitations went through Ryan, with Lisa saying she didn't want to bother me directly since I've been so busy. When I asked Ryan about this change, he said family members had mentioned I seemed overwhelmed, and they were trying to be considerate of my time. But I've never complained about being too busy for family. This is the most violating part. I've been watching Sophia more carefully at family gatherings, and I notice she always keeps her phone face down on tables during conversations, positioned toward whoever is talking. Yesterday, I tested a theory. At Sunday dinner at Carol's house, I sat across from Sophia and started telling a story about something funny Jake said at school. I watched her phone the entire time. The screen was black, but there was a small red dot in the corner she was recording. After dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom and called that phone number from my cell. It went straight to voicemail, but I could hear my own voice in the background saying, "And then Jake told his teacher that Mommy says Daddy snores like a bear." She's been recording our private family conversations for months. The hardest part is acknowledging how Ryan has changed. He's become defensive about time spent with Sophia, secretive about his phone, and dismissive of my concerns about family dynamics. Last week, I mentioned that I missed how close Lisa and I used to be, and Ryan said, "Maybe you should think about why people might be keeping their distance." Here's something I didn't mention in my original post. We have a home security system that records when doors are opened and closed. I never thought to check it before, but yesterday, I pulled up the logs for the past 3 months. There have been 7 instances when our front door was opened during times when Ryan and I were both at work and the kids were at daycare. The timing corresponds exactly with days when Ryan mentioned that Sophia might stop by to grab something or check on the house while we were out. But here's what's terrifying: she's been in our house for 2-3 hours each time. What does someone need to do in an empty house for 3 hours? I checked our bedroom, and several items have been moved slightly. My jewelry box, which I keep locked, had been repositioned on my dresser. The photo albums in our closet were out of order. It's subtle, but when you know what to look for, it's obvious someone has been going through our personal belongings. Grace is helping me document everything. She says Sophia's behavior could be harassment, stalking, even illegal recording. Our state requires all-party consent. Her journal shows this isn't impulsive, it's calculated. Grace advised hidden cameras legal since it's our home and detailed logs. She also warned Ryan might be another victim, not just a participant. I'm testing him tonight. I'll lie about a job offer in another state and see if it leaks. What hurts most is how isolated I feel. Sophia's poisoned so many relationships I'm doubting myself. But your comments reminded me. My instincts were right. I'm scared of what I'll find, but I'm furious too. She's crossed every line. The journal entry about making her move at the lake house keeps haunting me. I left before she could execute whatever she had planned, but I have a feeling she's not going to give up. If anything, My early departure might have made her more desperate. I'll update again after I've gathered more evidence. Thank you again for all the support. Knowing I'm not crazy has been the only thing keeping me sane. Update 2. I can't believe I'm writing this update. What I discovered over the past 3 weeks has shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage and my husband. I'm physically shaking as I type this, but I need to get it all out. I mentioned in my last update that I was going to test whether Ryan was feeding information to Sophia. That night, I casually told him I'd been contacted by a school district in Colorado about a superintendent position, and I was seriously considering applying because it would be a significant career advancement. Ryan seemed surprised but supportive. He asked thoughtful questions about the timeline and what it would mean for his business. It felt like a normal, loving conversation between spouses discussing a major life decision. 3 days later, Carol called me directly for the first time in months. She was concerned about rumors that Ryan and I were planning to move the twins away from family. She'd heard I was actively job hunting in other states and wanted to know if there were problems in our marriage that the family should know about. When I asked where she'd heard this, she said Sophia had mentioned it during one of their regular coffee dates, something I didn't even know they'd been having. Ryan had told Sophia about our private conversation within 72 hours. Following Grace's advice, I installed hidden cameras in our main living areas and bedroom. I told Ryan I was upgrading our security system after hearing about break-ins in the neighborhood. He seemed fine with it and even helped me position some of the visible cameras. What he didn't know was that I'd also installed tiny, hidden cameras in areas where someone might not expect surveillance: our home office, the guest bathroom, and near our safe where we keep important documents. Last week, I told Ryan I had a mandatory 3-day conference in the state capitol for school administrators. I showed him the registration confirmation and hotel booking. He was supportive and offered to take time off work to watch the twins, but I said my mom was excited to have them for a few days. Instead of going to any conference, I stayed at Grace's house and monitored our home security system remotely. At 10:30 a.m., less than 2 hours after Ryan left for work, our front door opened. Sophia let herself in using a key I now realize Ryan must have given her without telling me. For the next 4 hours, I watched in horror as she systematically went through our house. She started in our bedroom, going through my dresser drawers and jewelry box. She took photos of my personal items with her phone, including intimate clothing and love letters Ryan had written me early in our relationship. She spent 20 minutes in front of our bathroom mirror, apparently practicing facial expressions and poses. Then she moved to Ryan's home office. She photographed documents from his business, our tax returns and insurance policies. She opened our safe. Somehow she knew the combination and took pictures of our wills, property deeds, and the twins' birth certificates. But the most disturbing part was what she did in our living room. She rearranged furniture slightly, moved some of our family photos to less prominent positions, and replaced one of our wedding pictures with a photo of herself and Ryan from years ago that I'd never seen before. She was literally trying to erase me from my own home. Ryan texted me around noon saying he was going to come home for lunch to check on things since I wasn't there. I immediately called him and suggested he grab lunch with his crew instead, saying I'd feel better knowing someone was keeping an eye on the house all day rather than just stopping by briefly. He agreed, but at 6:30 p.m. he came home early from work. At 7:15 p.m., Sophia's car pulled into our driveway. What I witnessed over the next 3 hours was the most painful experience of my life. Sophia had a key to our house, knew Ryan's schedule, and had clearly planned this encounter. She was wearing a dress I recognized from our bedroom. She'd been trying on my clothes during her break in the day before. She greeted Ryan with an overly emotional hug, crying about how lonely and lost she felt. She'd brought wine and takeout from Ryan's favorite restaurant, information she could only have gotten from going through our personal belongings or from Ryan himself. For the first hour, Ryan maintained appropriate boundaries. He was kind but kept physical distance, and when Sophia tried to sit close to him on our couch, he moved to the armchair. But Sophia was relentless. She kept bringing up memories from before Ryan and I met, talking about how close they used to be, how she'd always felt like Ryan understood her better than anyone. She mentioned specific details about Ryan's childhood and family history that she was using to create false intimacy. Then she started crying harder, saying she felt like everyone in the family loved Amanda more and that she didn't know where she belonged anymore. She said her divorce had made her realize that the most important relationships are with family and that she needed Ryan's support more than ever. I watched my husband's resolve weaken in real time. When Sophia moved to sit next to him on the couch, he didn't move away. When she put her hand on his arm while talking, he didn't remove it. When she leaned against him while crying, he put his arm around her. And then she kissed him. For a moment that felt like eternity, Ryan didn't pull away. He didn't kiss her back, but he didn't immediately stop it either. When he finally did step back, he looked confused and conflicted, not angry or disgusted like I would have expected. Sophia immediately started apologizing, saying she was so lonely and confused, and that being with him felt like the only safe place in the world. She said she'd always had feelings for him, but had tried to do the right thing by marrying someone else. Ryan told her it was inappropriate and that she needed to leave, but his voice was gentle, almost regretful. He walked her to the door, and I could see them talking quietly for several more minutes before she finally left. After she was gone, Ryan sat on our couch for over an hour, just staring at the wall. He looked torn apart, and despite everything, my heart broke for him too. But the evidence gathering wasn't over. The next day, I used a voice recording app on my phone to call Sophia, pretending to be a wrong number. During the brief conversation, I could hear her talking to someone in the background about how well last night went, and how Ryan is finally starting to see what he's missing. Later that day, Grace helped me set up a more sophisticated recording system. We discovered that Sophia has been making regular calls to someone we think it might be a friend or maybe even a therapist, where she openly discusses her project of breaking up my marriage. In one recorded conversation, she said, "Amanda's so focused on being the perfect wife and mother that she doesn't see what's right in front of her. Ryan needs someone who understands him as a man, not just as a husband and father. I can be what she never was." In another, the family is already starting to see how controlling and difficult Amanda is. Once Ryan realizes he deserves better, everything will fall into place. The twins will adjust. Children are resilient. When I returned from my fake conference, I couldn't pretend everything was normal. Ryan was acting guilty and distant, barely making eye contact with me. He was extra attentive to the twins, as if overcompensating for something. I waited until the kids were asleep, then sat him down and told him I knew about Sophia's visit. His face went white. He started to deny it, then realized there was no point. Our security system would have recorded her car in the driveway, but he didn't know about the internal cameras. Ryan admitted that Sophia had come over and that she'd made a pass at him, but he insisted nothing had happened. He said he'd told her it was inappropriate and asked her to leave. He was angry that I'd set him up by lying about the conference and said he felt like I didn't trust him. When I asked why he hadn't told me about the incident immediately, he said he didn't want to cause family drama and that he knew Sophia was just going through a hard time. I didn't tell him about the cameras or everything else I'd discovered. Not yet. Grace advised me to check our financial accounts more thoroughly. What I found was devastating. Over the past 6 months, Ryan has been transferring money from our joint savings account to a separate account I didn't know existed. When I confronted him about it, he initially denied it, then admitted he'd been helping Sophia with some financial difficulties. He's given her over $15,000 of our money without discussing it with me. Money we'd been saving for the twins' college funds and a down payment on a larger house. But here's the worst part: when I checked the dates of the transfers, they correspond exactly with the expensive restaurant charges on our credit card. Ryan hasn't been taking Sophia out for family support dinners. She's been using our money to pay for dates where she could manipulate him in romantic settings. I have hours of security footage, recorded phone conversations, financial records, and photographic evidence of Sophia's systematic campaign to destroy my marriage. Grace says I have enough evidence for restraining orders, harassment charges, and potentially criminal charges for the break-ins and theft. But I'm not sure what I want to do about Ryan. He's been manipulated, but he's also been lying to me for months. He gave Sophia a key to our house without telling me. He's been giving her our family's money. He didn't immediately shut down her seduction attempt. Is he a victim of her manipulation, or has he been a willing participant all along? The twins keep asking why Mommy and Daddy seem sad lately. I'm trying to hold it together for them, but I don't know how much longer I can pretend everything is okay. Grace says I need to decide whether I want to try to save my marriage or protect myself and the twins by leaving. She's prepared to help me with either choice. I never thought I'd be facing this decision, but here I am. The family reunion is in 2 weeks. Sophia organized it, and it's being held at the lake house where this all started. She doesn't know that I know what she's been doing, and she certainly doesn't know about all the evidence I've gathered. Part of me wants to expose everything in front of the entire family. Part of me just wants to take my kids and disappear. What would you do? Update 3. The family reunion was 3 days ago, and I'm still processing everything that happened. Grace helped me compile all the evidence into a presentation. The journal entries, security footage, recorded phone calls, financial records, and photos of Sophia going through our belongings. I organized it chronologically to show the calculated nature of her campaign. The night before the reunion, I gave Ryan one final chance to tell me the truth about everything. I asked directly if there was anything else about Sophia that he hadn't told me. He looked me in the eyes and said no, insisting the kiss was the only inappropriate thing that had happened. That's when I knew he was either completely manipulated or actively participating. Either way, I was done protecting him. About 30 family members were at the reunion. Sophia had organized everything, positioning herself as the central figure. She was playing perfect hostess, and several relatives commented on how wonderful it was that she'd stepped up during her difficult time. Saturday evening, Sophia planned a gratitude ceremony where she gave a tearful speech about how much the Foster family meant to her, mentioning Ryan's incredible support and how the family had shown her unconditional love. Then she said something that made my blood boil. I know some people might question whether I really belong in this family, but you've all shown me that family isn't about blood or marriage certificates, it's about who shows up for each other. The implication was clear. She belonged. I was the outsider. That's when I stood up and connected my laptop to the big screen. You're absolutely right, Sophia. Family is about who shows up for each other. So let's see exactly how you've been showing up for this family. I walked through the evidence methodically. The journal pages appeared on screen in her own handwriting. The recorded conversations where she discussed breaking up my marriage. The security footage of her going through our bedroom and trying on my clothes. When I played her recorded voice saying, "The family is already starting to see how controlling Amanda is. Once Ryan realizes he deserves better, everything will fall into place. The twins will adjust, children are resilient." The room went completely silent. Sophia tried denying everything, claiming I was having a breakdown and was obsessed with destroying her. Then she broke down completely. "Fine. Yes, I wrote those things. But you have no idea what it's like to lose everything and watch someone else live the life you should have had." She turned to Ryan. "Tell them how unhappy you've been. Tell them about the connection we have that you've never had with her. I've been more of a wife to you than she ever was." Carol, my mother-in-law, spoke up with shaking rage. "You recorded conversations in my home. You manipulated my son. You stole from my grandchildren's college fund, and you think you deserve to be part of this family." The response was swift and unanimous. Tom called the police while Lisa started documenting what private information had been compromised. Carol was crying, feeling violated and betrayed. Even extended family members were horrified. This wasn't grief behavior, it was calculated cruelty. Sophia was arrested that night for breaking and entering, theft, and harassment. Police found evidence she'd been planning this for over a year, including photos of our house from before her divorce. The family completely cut ties with her, but the hardest part has been dealing with Ryan. He admitted he'd been uncomfortable with Sophia's behavior, but rationalized it as grief. He gave her the house key claiming she needed to water plants while we were out of town, something I'd never asked her to do. The money transfers started when she claimed she was facing eviction and promised to pay it back. About the kiss, he broke down. I was so confused. She kept saying how unhappy you seemed, how I deserved better. For just a moment I wondered if she was right. I'm so ashamed of that moment. We're in marriage counseling now, but I don't know if I can trust Ryan again. Yes, he was manipulated, but he also chose to doubt my instincts and dismiss my concerns as paranoia. I'm staying at Grace's while we work through this. The twins are anxious but don't know the full story. Sophia is facing jail time, and I feel vindicated but exhausted from months of gaslighting. To everyone who encouraged me to trust my instincts, thank you. You helped me fight back when I felt most alone. I don't know what happens next with my marriage, but I know no one will ever make me doubt my reality again. Story 7. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get this off my chest. My name is Ethan Miller and I'm 32. I run my own tech startup, which, ironically, no one in my family seems to care about. My older brother, Caleb, is the golden child. He's 35, married, with a great job, or so everyone says. My parents, especially my dad, Richard, have always treated him like he can do no wrong. Me, I'm the other son, the one they quietly roll their eyes at. I've always felt like I'm invisible in my own family. This Thanksgiving, though, was the breaking point. It was a total disaster. I'll never forget what happened. We all sat down for dinner, the extended family packed around the long table. I scanned the place cards trying to find mine, then I saw it. The other son. My stomach dropped to my knees. I looked up, my eyes meeting Richard's for a fleeting moment. He just smirked. The meal began and the usual forced pleasantries filled the air. Then came the toasts. Richard raised his glass, launching into a lengthy speech about Caleb's recent promotion and his amazing family. Caleb beamed, basking in the attention. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. Then Richard turned to me, holding out a small, wrapped package. "Ethan," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth, "I got you this. I thought you could use a little self-help." Inside was a book on overcoming underachievement. I stared at it, speechless. The room spun. Caleb, of course, chimed in, "Yeah, Ethan, you should really read that." My mother offered a week. "Oh, Richard, that's not necessary." But she didn't challenge him. After dinner, I tried to excuse myself, but Richard pulled me aside. "You're making a big deal out of nothing," he said, his voice low. "After everything we've done for you?" I bit back a retort. Was this really happening? Was I truly so invisible? Was this my life? The constant belittling, the blatant favoritism, was it all in my head? My hands trembled so badly I had to set my phone down. I was so angry, but I plastered a smile on my face the way I always did. It was the only way to survive. As I retreated to my car, I started to understand. This wasn't just a bad day. This was a pattern. I tried to address it. A quick phone call just to clear the air. I dialed my mother's number the next day, hoping she'd understand, that she'd seen what I saw. "Mom, can we talk about Thanksgiving?" My voice was tight, even to my own ears. "Oh, Ethan, honey," she sighed, her voice laced with that familiar weariness. "What's wrong?" "Dad's toast, the place card, the book." I stumbled, trying to find the right words. My heart was pounding like a drum against my ribs. "Well, Richard just wants you to succeed, sweetie," she said, her tone dismissive. Deflection, always deflection. "Mom, it was humiliating. He completely disregarded everything I've accomplished." A pause. "He loves you, Ethan. He doesn't always know how to show it." "That's not good enough anymore," I snapped, the words escaping before I could stop them. My face burned with humiliation. "Don't be dramatic, dear. We're family, we should support each other." Guilt tripping, the last bastion of their defense. "Support? He actively belittles me, he doesn't even know what I do." My throat closed up, words trapped inside. "You're being too sensitive, Ethan. Caleb's always been the more outgoing one." False equivalence. The familiar sting of comparison. "It's not about Caleb, it's about Dad and his constant disapproval." "We just want what's best for you," she repeated, the same empty phrases that had haunted me for years. The call ended with a strained silence. I hung up, defeated. The conversation had gone exactly as I'd anticipated. I felt a wave of shame wash over me. Was I overreacting? Maybe I was just too sensitive. Maybe I was the problem. But then a small spark of defiance flickered to life. Perhaps it wasn't all in my head. Perhaps they really were just like this. A week later, my phone buzzed incessantly. It was a group text from my mother. Family dinner Sunday at 6 p.m. Please RSVP. I ignored it. The next day, more texts, a call from my mother, a call from Caleb. Finally, I answered. Ethan, are you coming to dinner on Sunday? My mother's voice was tight, the practiced sweetness missing. I'm busy, Mom. Oh, come on, Ethan, it's just a simple dinner. Your father wants to see you. Wants to see me? I have plans. We're worried about you, darling. You haven't been yourself since Thanksgiving. The guilt trip was already in full swing. I sighed. Why was I still putting up with this? Sunday rolled around and the calls and texts had stopped. I let out a breath of relief, but my phone rang again. It was Caleb. Hey man, just checking in. Are you coming to dinner? His voice was overly casual, the golden child's practiced charm on full display. I told Mom I couldn't make it. Look, Dad's been a little down lately. He really wants to see you. A subtle pressure, a veiled threat. I have a lot of work to catch up on. Come on, Ethan. Remember when we used to build tree forts together? Remember that time Dad took us camping and you were so scared of the dark? Sentimental manipulation designed to disarm. A wave of nausea hit me. Flashbacks, me, a scared child, always seeking approval. Them laughing, dismissing my fears. Why was I still putting up with this? Look, I'm really swamped, Caleb. It's just a few hours. Come on for Mom and Dad. They miss you. More pressure, more guilt. I caved. Fine, I said, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. I'll be there. I arrived at their house, stomach already churning. The air inside was thick with the scent of roast beef and unspoken tension. My father sat at the head of the table, his face carefully neutral. My mother offered a strained smile. Caleb was already there, leaning back in his chair, looking relaxed. Ethan, you made it. My mother's relief was palpable. So good of you to come, Richard said, his tone carefully controlled. The dinner progressed with strained pleasantries, small talk and half smiles. Halfway through the meal, Richard launched into a story about Caleb's latest promotion. He spoke with pride, his eyes shining. Then he turned to me. Ethan's been busy too, I hear, running his little company. The little hung in the air, a subtle dig. There it is. It's going well, Dad, I said, my voice even. That's good. But it's important to have a backup plan, right? Security is key. He looked at me, a pointed look in his eye. I'm doing fine, I replied. We just want you to be happy, my mother chimed in, her voice gentle. The collective pressure of their concern closed in. After the meal, Richard cleared his throat. Ethan, I was thinking maybe you could put in a good word for me at your company. I'm looking for a new challenge. My jaw dropped. A new challenge? He was serious. That's not really possible, Dad. My voice was strained. Why not? I have years of experience, and you could use the help, right? He was acting like he was being reasonable. The room spun. The pressure in my head was unbearable. I stood up. I'm really tired, I said, making my way to the door. Ethan, don't you want dessert? My mother's voice was a plea. No thanks, Mom. I opened the door. Well, okay then, Richard said, his tone cold. Caleb didn't look up. As I walked out, I heard my mother say, he's just stressed, Richard. I didn't turn around. The next day, I found myself at a coffee shop, staring out the window. I needed to talk to someone, anyone who wasn't them. I texted Kimberly, my cousin, and asked if she was free. Surprisingly, she was. We settled into a corner booth, the clatter of cups and conversations fading into background noise as I started to recount the last few weeks, beginning with the Thanksgiving dinner. So, you know how the place card said the other son? I began, hesitant. And the toast and the book, Kimberly nodded, her expression concerned. Yeah, I saw. I'm so sorry, Ethan. That was rough. I shrugged, trying to downplay it. It's just, family stuff happens. Ethan, it's not just family stuff. That's actually not normal family behavior. To single you out like that in front of everyone and then give you a self-help book about underachieving when you're clearly not, that's just mean. Her words hit me like a wave. I hadn't realized, or maybe I hadn't allowed myself to realize, how objectively awful it was. I had spent so long trying to rationalize their behavior to find some explanation that I'd lost perspective. I started to unravel, the dam finally breaking. And then the texts, the dinner, the constant dismissal of my work, my life, it's like they don't even see me, Kimberly. They don't care. My voice cracked. They do care, Ethan, but they're complicated. She paused, searching for the right words. Look, I know you've always felt like the outsider. I've seen it. I've seen how Richard talks to Caleb and then you. It's always been different. It's like I can't do anything right. I continued, the words tumbling out. I've built this company from scratch, it's thriving, I'm successful, but it's never enough. He always finds a way to minimize it, to make me feel like I haven't achieved anything. That's manipulative, Ethan, you realize that, right? Kimberly leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. He's trying to control you, to keep you down, so you stay in his orbit, needing his approval. That's what it feels like anyway, from where I sit. I stared at her, stunned. Control? I never thought of it like that. Think about it. If anyone else treated you that way, would you accept it? Would you put up with it? I considered her question. The answer was, of course, a resounding no. If a colleague, a friend, a romantic partner had treated me with the same level of disdain and dismissiveness, I would have cut them off immediately. You deserve to be treated with basic respect, Ethan, she said softly, reaching across the table to touch my hand. And frankly, you deserve to be celebrated. You're amazing. The simple gesture, the validation, brought tears to my eyes. I don't know what to do, I stammered. I just want them to see me. I know, she said, but maybe you don't need them to see you. Maybe you need to see yourself, and you clearly do see yourself, judging by everything you've built. It's not about them anymore, Ethan, it's about you. I sat back, the implications of her words sinking in. It was a moment of clarity. The years of self-doubt, the constant need for validation, the feeling of inadequacy, it was all fueled by them. Their behavior, their disapproval had shaped my view of myself, but they weren't the arbiters of my worth. I was, and I had the power to change the narrative. I had already done it in so many other areas of my life, in my professional life. Now, I just had to apply the same principle to my family. I began, my voice stronger. I think you're right. I took a deep breath. I think I'm done. The phone buzzed, a generic notification, new email. My heart rate quickened, a familiar anxiety bloomed in my chest. I just knew it was from HR. Subject, interview request. The sender, Richard Miller, my breath hitched. He's actually doing it. I clicked the email, my fingers trembling slightly. The body text was short, to the point. Dear Richard, thank you for your interest in the mid-level position at Miller Tech. We would like to invite you to an interview. The standard boilerplate followed, listing the date, time, and location. My company, my office, the glass-walled interview room I designed. A slow burn of fury began to ignite within me. I scrolled to the bottom. Please be prepared to present a portfolio of your relevant experience. Experience? The audacity was breathtaking. He was going to sit across from my employees, pretending to be qualified for a job he had no business applying for. The email ended with, "Please note that all applicants are subject to a rigorous interview process. We look forward to meeting you." The implication, of course, being that he was already in. He thought I would pave the way for him. Something inside me snapped. Not a physical sound, but an internal rupture. Years of carefully constructed control, of swallowing my feelings, of trying to appease, shattered. A sudden clarity washed over me, a sense of calm replacing the previous anxiety. My shoulders straightened, my spine seemed to lengthen. The familiar knot of self-doubt I had carried for years loosened. The world sharpened. I saw the email, the sterile white of the screen, with a new intensity. I saw the implications. He was not just seeking a job. This was a final, undeniable assertion. A blatant attempt to exploit my success, to leech off my accomplishments, to insert himself directly into my life and take a bite out of my accomplishments. It was a declaration of war. I felt a cold wave of relief mixed with a surge of resolve. No more pretending. No more placating. This wasn't about hurt feelings anymore. This wasn't about familial obligation. This was about my life, my success, my hard work, and my future. My jaw tightened. I stood up from my chair, a sudden energy coursing through me. I walked to the window, looked out at the city skyline. I was the architect of this success. This was my creation, and I would not let him destroy it. I made a decision. I would not let him anywhere near my company. I would not let him win. This was the ultimate test. I had to act. I had to protect myself. I had to protect my future. He will not win. I won't let him. The glass-walled interview room, that was the battlefield. Ethan stared at the email again, the invitation a taunt. He ran a hand through his hair, the familiar anxiety fluttering in his chest. This wasn't just a family spat anymore. This was a strategic maneuver, a calculated play for power. He wouldn't be caught off guard. He started with the Thanksgiving video. He'd shared it on Reddit, of course, a desperate cry for validation that had, ironically, backfired. but the recording itself was gold. He downloaded it, transcribed the toast verbatim, and added timestamps. The place card photo another piece of ammunition. He had the email chain with his mother, the dismissive text from Caleb. He even found a recording of his dad's LinkedIn profile, a meticulously crafted facade of accomplishments, a glaring lie that would be perfect. Then came the legal research. He spent hours poring over employment law, company policy, and defamation statutes. He needed to know his rights, his options. He wanted to make sure his father knew he was serious. He also researched a few subtle tactics. He had to anticipate his father's moves, his attempts at manipulation. He had to be ready for anything. He booked a meeting with his company lawyer, a stern, sharp-witted woman named Sarah. He explained the situation, laying bare the long history of his father's behavior, the blatant disregard, the recent job application. Sarah listened intently, her expression unreadable. "This is highly unusual," she said finally, "but not unheard of. We can certainly deny the application, citing company policy." She added, "Be prepared for him to fight back. He's going to try to guilt-trip you to make you the bad guy." That was the plan. He created a meticulous plan: denial of the job, a cease and desist letter regarding the fraudulent LinkedIn profile, and a statement emphasizing his father's lack of qualifications. Contingencies were in place. A carefully worded press release if things got ugly, a pre-prepared statement for HR, even a backup plan in case Richard tried to go over his head. He spent the next day practicing. He rehearsed his responses, anticipating every possible question, every manipulative tactic. He ran through scenarios with a friend, a tech-savvy colleague who had been his rock. He'd have his friend on standby, ready to record the interview if necessary. Then Kimberly texted, "Hey, heard about the interview, you okay?" He met her at a small cafe, the same one where he'd bared his soul about Thanksgiving. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting her concern. "You sure you're ready for this, Ethan?" she asked, stirring her coffee. "I know you've planned and you've prepared, but are you prepared for what it might do to you?" "I'm ready," Ethan said, his voice firm. "I have to be, for me." Kimberly smiled gently. "Good, because I think you're going to do great." She paused. "Just remember why you're doing it. You're not just fighting for your company or your job, you're fighting for yourself." "I know," he said, the words echoing in his mind. "For myself." "And you're not alone," she added. "I'm here if you need me, we all are." She gave him a small, reassuring nod. "And if he tries any of his usual tricks, remember you have all the power in that room, you own it." He took a deep breath. "Thanks, Kim, you got this, just be you." Back in his apartment, he chose his clothes carefully. A crisp, dark suit, a subtle power tie. He wanted to look professional, in control. He took a long shower, focusing on his breathing, trying to calm the nervous flutter in his stomach. He visualized the interview, the sterile room, his father's face. He saw himself standing firm, speaking clearly, refusing to be intimidated. He looked at the clock, time. He picked up the folder containing the evidence, the transcripts, the legal documents. He took one last look at the city lights, a reminder of everything he had built, everything he had achieved. He had survived Thanksgiving. He had survived years of belittlement. He would survive this. He walked to the elevator, his steps steady, his resolve unwavering. No more masks, no more smiles. This was it, the point of no return. He was done being the other son. He was done. The sterile interview room hummed with the low thrum of the air conditioning. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling glass walls, illuminating the polished table and the two uncomfortable chairs. Ethan sat composed, his gaze steady, a stark contrast to the man who entered, Richard Miller. Richard's face was flushed, his eyes darting nervously around the room. He wore a poorly fitting suit, a visual representation of his desperation. He forced a smile, all practiced charm. "Ethan, well, this is unexpected." Ethan gestured toward the chair. "Please sit down, Dad." His voice was even devoid of any emotion beyond professional courtesy. Richard sat, his movements stiff. "So this is impressive. Miller Tech, you've done well." "Thank you." Ethan opened the folder in front of him, the rustle of the papers echoing in the silence. "Let's get straight to business, shall we?" "I understand you applied for the mid-level position?" Richard straightened, his smile faltering. "Yes, well, I saw the opening and I thought my experience could be valuable." He leaned forward. "You know, for the company and well to help you." Ethan met his gaze directly. "Dad, I've reviewed your application, and I have to say I'm surprised." He paused, letting the word hang in the air. He opened the folder and pulled out a printed copy of the Thanksgiving toast. "You see, company policy requires transparency, and frankly, your recent professional history doesn't align with the requirements." He placed the transcript on the table. "This is what you said at Thanksgiving." Richard's face paled. "Ethan, I was just trying to be supportive of Caleb." He stammered, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. "And what about supporting me, Dad? What about acknowledging my successes?" Ethan asked. He pulled out the place card photo, the email chain, the other son, the dismissive emails. "This is your track record, Dad." Richard sputtered. "Ethan, this is unfair. This is a private matter, family matters." He leaned forward. "You wouldn't do this to me, would you? Your own father." His voice cracked, the practiced facade beginning to crumble. He attempted to reach out, his hand halting mid-air. Ethan remained unmoved. "Those tactics don't work on me anymore." He didn't flinch. He didn't show pity. Richard's eyes widened, his carefully constructed mask finally shattering. He sat back in his chair, his face a mask of fury and desperation. "You ungrateful, after everything I've done for you. You haven't done anything for me, Dad. You've taken, you've belittled, you've dismissed." Ethan continued, his voice steady. "This isn't about a job, it's not about business, it's about a lifetime of being undermined, of being made to feel less than. This is about the book, the place card, the unspoken words, the constant comparison." He placed the cease and desist letter on the table. "This is about your blatant attempt to leech off my success, to leverage my name for your own benefit, and I'm done." Richard's jaw dropped. "You can't, whoa. This ends now. I'm not asking, I'm telling you." Ethan met his father's gaze head-on. "I'm done sacrificing my well-being for your comfort. I'm done seeking your approval. I'm done. I'm done with the denial. I'm done with the manipulation. I'm done, and you have no place here." He pushed the application back across the table. "This is a rejection." Richard sat, stunned, defeated. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. His usual playbook had failed. He was trapped. He had lost. Ethan stood, his hand resting on the table. He looked at his father, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. "This isn't about the job, Dad. This isn't about the company. This is about the truth. And the truth is, you never saw me, and I'm finally okay with that. You don't have to." Then he turned, and without a backward glance, he walked out of the room. The immediate aftermath was a blur of adrenaline and exhaustion. Ethan walked out of the interview room, the weight of years lifting from his shoulders with each step. He couldn't stop the tremor in his hands, but the fear was gone, replaced by a strange sense of calm. He walked to his office, shut the door, and leaned against it, taking deep, shaky breaths. He was free. The next few hours were a whirlwind. He met with Sarah, the company lawyer, to finalize the rejection and prepare the cease and desist. He sent the email to Richard, the carefully worded message of denial, the legal warnings. He called Kimberly, her voice a soothing balm as he recounted the confrontation, her validation a reward for his bravery. He slept deeply that night, the first restful sleep he'd had in years. The fallout was immediate and messy. Richard, predictably, was furious. His calls and emails were blocked. Caleb, however, was a different story. He called, concerned, confused, and strangely apologetic. He hadn't known the extent of Richard's behavior. He'd always been blind, wrapped up in his own golden glow. Their relationship, already strained, was now broken. Susan, his mother, reacted with a mixture of denial and guilt. She continued to call, plead, and guilt-trip, but Ethan was resolute. "It's been 6 weeks since that day. The initial chaos has subsided, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. Ethan still runs his company, but he feels a new sense of purpose, a fire that the family drama had nearly extinguished. The self-doubt has diminished, replaced by a quiet confidence. He's no longer the other son, he is Ethan, the man he has built himself into." Positive developments abound. He started going to therapy, working through the years of emotional neglect. He's finally processing his emotions, not suppressing them. His relationship with Kimberly has blossomed. They talk daily, sharing successes and sorrows. She sees him. He sees her. He has built new, supportive relationships at work, employees who respect him and his decisions. He had also quietly removed the Thanksgiving recording from Reddit, acknowledging the need to maintain a private life. The challenges remain, of course. His mother still attempts to manipulate him with guilt. Richard, though silent, is a constant presence in the background, a threat of potential legal action. The extended family is divided, some siding with Richard, others offering quiet sympathy. Caleb, while contrite, still struggles to understand the depth of the wounds. He's learned that healing isn't linear. There are good days and bad days. There are moments of doubt, times when the old, familiar feeling of inadequacy threatens to resurface. But he has the tools to combat them now. He has built a life that validates his worth, not one that depends on his family's approval. He's learned that his family will never fully change, but his internal state can. Before, he was a prisoner of his family's expectations, constantly seeking validation and approval. Now he is free. He's learning to set boundaries, to prioritize his well-being, to celebrate his successes. He is the master of his own life. He is finally fully himself. So Reddit, I'm doing better. I'm thriving. But I still struggle with the guilt, the feeling that I've somehow failed my family. Has anyone else had similar experiences? How do you navigate the complexities of family estrangement and maintain healthy boundaries? And if you've managed to find peace, what advice would you give to someone still struggling with the ghosts of the past? Story 8. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be writing this, but I'm Ethan, 32. I work a decent desk job, nothing glamorous, but I make a decent living. I'm the middle child in a family that's, well, let's just say it's complicated. My older sister, Stella, is the golden child. Everything she does is perfect in my parents' eyes while I'm just there. My parents, Richard and Susan, are in their 60s. They're nice enough, I guess, but completely passive when it comes to Stella. She's always been the center of their world, and I've always been the one who pays for it. I've always been the one who quietly picks up the pieces, especially financially. I've always felt like I was just an ATM for them. It's exhausting, but what I just found out, it was the final straw. I don't even know where to begin. I was scrolling through my online banking, checking my balance. Bills were due, the usual. Then I saw it, a $15,000 transaction to a travel agency. My stomach dropped to my knees. I don't spend that kind of money. I certainly hadn't authorized it. I clicked on the details. Maui family vacation. My hands trembled so badly I had to set my phone down. This couldn't be right. A cold wave washed over me. I'd heard whispers about a trip, but Stella had told me it was canceled. Dad's health scare, she'd said, cost too much. I scrolled through my texts. Nothing. No mention of the trip, no asking for permission. Then I remembered the email notifications. I opened my inbox, searching for the agency. There it was, the itinerary, the confirmation, all under Stella's name, and paid for with my money. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. I called Stella. Hey, what's this Maui trip? Oh, hey, yeah, Dad's feeling better, but the trip. The trip is paid for with my money, Stella, all $15,000 of it. Silence. Then, Ethan, you're making a big deal out of nothing. After everything we've done for you, what have you done for me? I'm the one who always helps out. This isn't about me, this is about the family. Her voice was rising. You need to think about what's best for the family. I felt a familiar ache, a deep, raw wound opening up. Was I really just that invisible? That replaceable? Is this how they all see me? Just a source of funds? A sudden, terrifying clarity washed over me. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. I let myself be used. Again, I went to their house. Dinner, a Sunday tradition I usually skipped, was already underway. Dad was carving the roast, Mom fussing with the salad. Stella, radiant, chatted animatedly. I sat down, my heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. So the Maui trip, I began, my voice a little shaky. Stella's smile faltered. She stabbed at a lettuce leaf with her fork. Ethan, we talked about this. It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? The $15,000 I paid. I held up my phone, displaying the transaction. My face burned with humiliation. Oh, that, Stella said airily. You know how things are. It's a family vacation. Paid for with MY money, I repeated, the words a dry rasp in my throat. Mom piped up, her voice tight. Why are you bringing this up now, Ethan? Can't we just enjoy dinner? Enjoy dinner? My throat closed up, words trapped inside. Dad finally spoke, his voice low. Stella, what's going on? Stella's eyes flickered. It was going to be canceled, the best laid plans, she trailed off. The trip wasn't canceled. I have the itinerary, I said, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. I paid for it, Mom sighed. Everyone has problems, Ethan, you're not special. False equivalence. It was always the same. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but Stella cut me off. We were going to tell you you always ruin the mood. I felt a hot flush of anger, but it was mixed with something else, self-doubt. Maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe I was always the problem. Was I really that selfish? The thought stung. Maybe they were right. I stared at my plate, felt defeated, but then a spark. The treatment I was given wasn't deserved. A week later, the phone wouldn't stop. It was Mom, then Dad, then Stella leaving a flurry of voicemails. "Ethan, honey, please call us back. We need to talk. It's important." I ignored them all. The following Saturday morning, there was a knock at the door. I peered through the peephole. Stella, Mom, and Dad beaming, a family ambush. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "Ethan, we thought we'd surprise you." Mom's voice was bright, almost unnervingly so. "Come on in," I said, my voice flat. My stomach churned. They crowded into my small living room, the air instantly feeling thick and suffocating. Stella immediately started fussing, smoothing the cushions on my sofa. "It's so cozy in here." "We wanted to talk," Dad began, looking unusually earnest. Mom chimed in, "We just want to clear the air." Stella, her eyes sparkling, placed a hand on my arm. "Remember when we were kids, Ethan? The trips we took, the things we did, those were amazing." The sentimentality made my skin crawl. It was a tactic designed to disarm. A flashback to birthday gifts I'd funded, dinners I'd paid for. "So, about the trip," I began. "Oh, that," Stella said, waving a hand dismissively. "It was a misunderstanding. Let's just put it behind us. It's about family, you know." Mom nodded vigorously. "We've already booked another family trip, Ethan, to Vegas, your favorite city." "How thoughtful," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "We were thinking you could cover the costs again." Stella asked casually, my jaw clenched, bigger demands acting like they're being reasonable. Why was I still putting up with this? Why was I still putting up with this? "It's no problem," Mom said, her voice taking on a pleading tone. "We can't wait to spend time together as a family." "I have other plans," I said. The words felt strange on my tongue. "What plans?" Stella asked. "I have plans," I repeated, refusing to elaborate. I stood up. "I have to run. Nice seeing you all." They protested, but I ignored them. I walked to the door, a tiny smile playing on my lips. I was going for a walk. I found myself at Logan and Stella's house. I didn't want to go. Stella was out, but Logan was there, alone in the kitchen, fiddling with a coffee machine. He seemed different somehow. He hadn't said a word during my family's visit last weekend. I'd always considered Logan harmless, a bit of a pushover, really. Now, seeing him standing in his kitchen and staring at the coffee machine, I realized I'd never really seen him before. I just assumed he was a part of the furniture. He turned when he heard me enter. "Ethan, hey, coffee." "Yeah, thanks," I mumbled, taking a seat at the kitchen island. I avoided his gaze, fiddling with the edge of the countertop. I didn't know why I'd come. Probably because I needed someone. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken things. I hated talking about my family. It felt like admitting defeat. Finally, I blurted out, It's just a lot, you know." Logan poured coffee, his movements slow and deliberate. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Stella told me about the Maui trip, and everything." My stomach clenched. I hadn't realized Stella had spoken about it to him, or that he had any idea about the issues. I don't want to burden you, I'm still processing everything." He handed me a mug. "No burden, I see how they treat you, Ethan. I've seen it for years, it's not right." I took a sip of the coffee, the warmth spreading through me. "It's always been like this. Stella gets everything, I just help out. It's what you do, right?" I tried to laugh, but it came out a choked sound. He leaned against the counter, studying me. "That's actually not normal family behavior, Ethan. You realize that, right?" I shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know, they're my family. I'm supposed to support them, be there." "Support them? By funding their vacations and being excluded. You realize that's manipulative, right?" Logan's voice was gentle but firm. "If anyone else treated you that way, would you accept it?" I stared into my coffee, the bitter taste suddenly overwhelming. "I don't know," I whispered. "I guess not." "You deserve to be treated with basic respect, Ethan," Logan continued. "You deserve to be valued, not just used." My eyes prickled. No one had ever said that to me before. I felt a dam breaking, a flood of emotions threatening to spill over. I feel so stupid," I confessed, my voice thick with emotion. "For letting it happen for so long." "You're not stupid," Logan said. "You're loyal, you wanted your family to be happy, to have a good life. That's admirable, but they've taken advantage of that, Ethan. They've exploited your kindness." He paused, then said, "Stella, she's always been like this. Her parents, your parents, they enable it. I finally looked up at him, a dawning realization spreading through me. She told me it was canceled, then I find out she's going without me. Logan's face hardened. She told me it was canceled too, but then when it was time to go, she was giddy. He paused. I heard them making fun of you. The words hit me like a physical blow. A wave of shame, anger, and disbelief washed over me. The anger was new and potent. I never had the right to be angry before. I thought I was being selfish, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. No, Logan said, his voice resolute. You're not selfish. You're reacting to being treated terribly. The way they all ganged up on you, it was okay. And all these years they've been taking advantage of you. His words were a lifeline, a confirmation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the problem. My family, they were. I sat in silence, the pieces finally falling into place. It wasn't just the Maui trip. It was the years of financial support, the silent expectations, the constant feeling of being unseen, undervalued. It was a pattern, a carefully constructed system of manipulation. I took a deep breath, feeling a shift within me. A new resolve, a quiet steel. I'm done, I said, my voice clear and steady. Logan nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I figured. The week crawled by. I went to work, went home, and pretended everything was normal. Inside, though, a storm raged. I replayed the conversations, the betrayals, the casual cruelty. Then, the day before the family was due back, I checked my email. And there it was, a shared Google Photos album, the title, Maui Memories. I hesitated, then clicked. The first photo was of Stella, beaming on a beach, cocktail in hand. Dad, Mom, and Stella were all laughing, looking tanned and relaxed. The next, Stella in a luau with the caption, "Living it up." Another, a photo of the plane labeled, "Leaving the kids behind." My chest constricted, the air in the room thinned. My hands began to shake. I scrolled, each picture a fresh stab. Stella with Logan, who was smiling, looking happy. A group shot and I wasn't there. No mention of me, no acknowledgement. They de-celebrated their trip, their time together, without a single thought of me. Then I saw it, a video, I clicked it. It was Stella, laughing, swaying. "Missing someone, just kidding," she said, winking at the camera. The camera panned over to Dad, who raised his glass and said, "To family, the real family." Mom clapped and Stella toasted, "To us." I felt a sensation, an almost physical snap inside me. Something broke. It wasn't just hurt or anger or betrayal. It was something else entirely. A switch flipped. My shoulders straightened, my breath steadied, my anxiety vanished. The room seemed to clear, the colors suddenly sharp. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and strong. No more, it was over. I moved from the computer, calm and purposeful. I knew what I had to do. I knew what I needed. "I'm done," I said out loud, my voice resonating with a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. I was calm, I felt free. I would not allow this any longer, not ever again. The next few days were a blur of meticulous planning. I started with the financial records, every single transaction related to the Maui trip, screenshots carefully dated and organized. Then I dug deeper, going back years. The history of loans I'd given, the gifts, the endless financial support. I was building a case not just for the confrontation but for myself. I consulted a lawyer, a brief preliminary discussion. They confirmed what I already knew: I had been funding their lifestyle. There were no legal violations, no grounds for a lawsuit, but it provided me with perspective. It wasn't illegal, it was just wrong. The real work began in my mind. The initial shock and hurt had subsided, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. This wasn't about revenge. It was about taking control. I began to mentally rehearse scenarios, anticipating their reactions. Stella would be defensive, manipulative. Mom would play the victim. Dad would retreat. I needed to be prepared for it all. I practiced, alone in my apartment, speaking the words I needed to say. Short, sharp sentences that cut through their usual defenses. I needed to be the eye of the storm. I knew the confrontation would be at their house. The setting was familiar, a place of comfort for them, a place of subtle power for me. The day before they returned, I spent hours online, researching goat farms. I needed somewhere remote, somewhere unexpected. I found one a few hours away with a charming website and a reputation for eccentric clients. I booked a large delivery, not for the family but for their belongings. Logan called. We talked for hours. He offered a level of support I wasn't used to. "Are you sure about this, Ethan?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "This is a big step." "I have to be," I said, my voice firm. "I can't keep doing this." Just be careful. They're going to try and make you the bad guy. I know, I replied, but I'm not, I'm just done. He offered to be there to wait nearby in case I needed him. A backup, a lifeline, I politely declined. I needed to do this alone. I needed to prove to myself that I could. I spent the evening preparing. Showering, putting on a new, dark blue button-down shirt, my serious shirt. I wanted to look put together but not intimidating. I made sure I had my phone charged and ready. The evidence was all organized in a neatly labeled folder. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, practicing my calm again. My focus narrowed, my pulse quickened. I felt a knot of anxiety, but it was different now, tempered by a steely determination. I walked to my front door. No turning back. This was the line. The familiar scent of Richard and Susan's home hung in the air, roasted chicken, cheap air freshener, and unspoken tension. The living room was as expected, a meticulously maintained space, the furniture arranged just so. The family, however, was not. Stella was pacing, her face a mask of forced composure. Mom was dabbing at her eyes, a handkerchief clutched in her hand. Dad was strangely silent, his face a study in bewilderment. Logan was present, standing off to the side, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Ethan entered, his expression neutral. He closed the door behind him, the click echoing in the sudden silence. "Ethan, darling, you need to understand," Mom began, her voice cracking. "Understand what, Mom?" Ethan asked, his voice calm, almost conversational. "That I'm the family ATM, that my feelings don't matter. That you're all fine with me being excluded and lied to." He held up his phone, the screen displaying the Google Photos album. He then pulled up the details of the goat farm delivery. "I've also redirected your luggage. It's on its way to a goat farm." Stella's eyes widened, her perfect facade cracking. "What? Ethan, this is ridiculous. You can't do that." "Oh, but I can," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I've been doing a lot of things I can do lately, like taking care of myself." Dad finally found his voice. "Ethan, this is about the trip, isn't it? We can talk about it. We can make it up to you." Ethan turned to him, his expression unreadable. "You can't make it up to me, not anymore. Those tactics don't work on me anymore, Dad." Mom started to cry in earnest, her shoulders shaking. "How could you do this, Ethan? After everything we've been through?" Ethan ignored her, his gaze fixed on Stella. "I saw the photos, Stella, the video, the To Us toast. You deliberately excluded me. You lied, you manipulated, you used my money, and then you celebrated my absence. This isn't about a vacation, it's about control, and you've lost it." Stella stepped back, her carefully constructed composure crumbling. "This is Logan's fault. He's been poisoning you against us." Logan shifted, his expression unreadable. "That's a lie, Stella." Ethan ignored her, turning his attention to his parents. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. This ends now. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. I am done sacrificing my well-being for your comfort. I'm done." Dad's jaw dropped. Mom gasped, her sobs growing louder. Stella's face was a mask of fury and then a desperate attempt to regain control. "Ethan, please, we're family, we love you." Ethan looked at them, his eyes devoid of emotion. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small, folded piece of paper and placed it on the coffee table. "The financial records, everything. You can explain it to yourselves. I'll be going, and I'll be limiting further contact. Goodbye." He turned and walked towards the door. As he reached for the handle, he heard Stella's voice, desperate and pleading. "Ethan, wait, please." He paused, his back to them. He turned and looked at them. A final, steady gaze. He said, "I will not participate in your lies any longer." Then, with a final look at his family, Ethan opened the door and left. He didn't look back. The sting of adrenaline faded, leaving Ethan drained. His legs felt shaky as he walked the few blocks to his apartment. The door slammed shut behind him, a final, decisive act. He leaned against it, taking deep, ragged breaths. The weight he'd carried for years felt lighter, almost gone. He was free, but it was an unsettling freedom. He spent the next hour in a daze, replaying the scene in his head. The look on Stella's face when the truth hit her. The stunned silence of his parents. The quiet support of Logan, which he hadn't expected. There was a strange satisfaction in the chaos, a vindication. But it was quickly followed by a wave of sadness, a deep, hollow ache. He'd lost his family. Or rather, he'd finally acknowledged he never truly had one. He sank into his couch, the silence of his apartment amplifying the turmoil within him. He felt exhausted and alone, but also strangely exhilarated. It's been 3 months since that day. The initial shock has worn off, replaced by a quiet, persistent sense of peace. The world feels sharper, more vibrant. He's rediscovered hobbies he'd abandoned: painting, hiking, and reading. He started going to the gym, focusing on his physical health, and finally prioritizing his own well-being. He's cut off contact with his parents, a difficult but necessary step. There were a few tearful voicemails, a couple of attempts at reconciliation, but he didn't answer. He couldn't. He needed to protect himself. Stella, she's been surprisingly quiet. He heard through mutual friends that her marriage to Logan is over, that the fallout from the confrontation had been devastating. The family's social circle, however, was not as silent. He'd received a few passive-aggressive messages, but mostly people had remained silent, not taking sides. He'd also received a few unexpected calls from distant relatives, expressing concern and support. He learned he had a cousin, Sarah, who had always seen Stella's manipulations but felt too intimidated to call them out. She and Ethan had bonded over coffee and a shared sense of humor. She was becoming a true friend. The hardest part was the holidays. Thanksgiving had been a quiet affair with Sarah, a cozy, alternative celebration. The empty chairs at the table, the absence of familiar faces had been painful. Yet he also realized how much happier he was, not having to tolerate the usual drama and passive-aggressive behavior. It was liberating. His parents. He'd received a letter from his mother, filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness. He didn't read it. He'd also received a call from his father, who sounded broken. Ethan had just hung up. He knew that they weren't going to change. He knew that he couldn't go back. He was no longer the quiet, compliant son. He was a man who had finally taken control of his life. He'd found a strength he never knew he possessed. He was building a life on his own terms, a life free from the suffocating expectations of his family. But the past still lingers. There are moments of doubt, moments when the guilt creeps in, when he wonders if he was too harsh. He sometimes misses the familiarity, even the dysfunction. He also still has a residual fear that they might try to manipulate him again, that they might try to worm their way back into his life. He's learned that blood isn't always thicker than water, that sometimes the greatest act of love is to walk away. He's learned the importance of setting boundaries, of prioritizing his own needs, and of surrounding himself with people who value and respect him. He now feels calmer, more confident, and at peace with his choices. The crushing weight of obligation has been replaced by a sense of lightness, a newfound freedom he never knew he could experience. I'm building a better life. I'm better than I was. Do you have any experience with family dynamics like these? How do you deal with manipulative family members? Do you think I made the right choices, or did I go too far? Story 9. The cake at my Stanford graduation party said, "Congratulations, disappointment." And that's when I decided my family had just lost their secret millionaire daughter forever. My name is Alina Mitchell, 24 years old, and while they were recording my humiliation for entertainment, they had no idea I'd been quietly funding their lives for years. That was about to change. Standing in their decorated living room, watching them laugh at their cruel joke, I realized I'd been funding my own abuse. The banner reading, "Congratulations, Alina," stretched across the room like a beautiful lie. Blue and silver streamers hung from every corner, expensive decorations that cost more than they usually spent on me in a year. I'd never seen them put this kind of effort into anything for me. Not when I won the state science fair at 16, beating out students from schools with budgets 10 times ours. Not when I graduated valedictorian from high school with a perfect 4 GPA. Not when I landed my first internship at Goldman Sachs last summer, the one that had quietly been paying me more than my father's annual salary from his struggling insurance business. But they'd done it for Jake before. My older brother, the golden child who could do no wrong, even when everything he touched turned to ash. When Jake barely scraped into a second-tier college 3 years ago with a 2.3 GPA, they threw him a massive celebration, invited all his friends, bought him a brand new MacBook Pro, and even rented a bounce house because it would be fun. When he flunked out after his first year, partying through finals week instead of studying, there were no lectures, no disappointment, no consequences. Just understanding nods and promises that everyone learns at their own pace, and college isn't for everyone. For me. Every achievement came with the same dismissive phrase. Alina doesn't need the attention, she's the dependable one. The dependable one. That was my role in this family, the one who quietly excelled without needing praise, the one who solved problems without complaining, the one who always put everyone else's needs before her own. Mom wrapped me in a surprisingly genuine hug. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." Our little girl graduating summa cum laude from Stanford. The words hit me like a physical shock. She knew my GPA. She knew the Latin honors. When had she ever paid attention to details like that before? I blinked, genuinely confused by the sincerity in her voice, the way her eyes seemed to actually see me for the first time in years. After 24 years of being the family afterthought, was something finally changing? Had I finally done something worthy of their recognition? Dad clapped my back with more enthusiasm than I'd seen from him since. Well, ever. His hand lingered there, warm and proud in a way that made my chest tight with unexpected emotion. "First college graduate in the family, huh? Look at you, kiddo. Stanford University. Who would have thought our quiet little Alina would end up there?" The word kiddo hit differently when it wasn't followed by disappointment or dismissal. I actually smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months, maybe years. "We always knew you were special," Mom continued, her hand still on my arm. "Different from the rest of us. Smarter, more driven, we just didn't want you to feel pressured." Pressured? I almost laughed. I'd been pressuring myself for years while they lavished attention on Jake's mediocrity. Jake leaned against the wall near the kitchen, scrolling through his phone with practiced indifference, his thumb moving in that mindless pattern I'd watched 1,000 times before. Typical. Even today, he couldn't be bothered to engage. But somehow, even his obvious disinterest couldn't dampen this moment. For once, this was about me. Neighbors and family friends I barely recognized came up to shake my hand, asking about my future plans, my degree, my prospects. Mrs. Henderson from next door wanted to know about my thesis. Uncle Mike asked about job offers. Cousin Lisa actually seemed impressed when I mentioned my internship experience. If they only knew about the investment portfolio I'd been building since sophomore year, starting with the money from my part-time tutoring job and growing it through careful research and strategic risks. Or the consulting firm I'd quietly started that was already generating 6 figures annually, helping small businesses optimize their financial strategies while I finished my final semester. The irony wasn't lost on me. While they celebrated my graduation, they had no idea I was already more financially successful than anyone in this room, including them. Then they brought out the cake. Magnificent, 3 layers, professional frosting, definitely custom ordered. Mom carried it in with a bright smile, setting it directly in front of me. Dad pulled out his phone to record the moment. When had he ever wanted to record my achievements before? "Go ahead," Dad said, his grin stretching wide with anticipation. "Take a look at what we had made special just for you." The room fell quiet, everyone gathering around with expectant faces. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for my reaction, their phones out to capture this moment of family pride. Still caught in the warmth of the moment, still believing that maybe, just maybe, things had finally changed between us, I leaned forward eagerly. My heart was actually racing with happiness, with the unfamiliar sensation of being truly celebrated by the people who were supposed to love me most. And that's when I saw the writing. Congratulations, disappointment. The words hit like a physical blow. The elaborate joke crystallized instantly, the decorations, the effort, the fake pride. All designed to build me up just high enough to make the fall more satisfying. The laughter started with Dad, a low chuckle that grew into full-bellied laughter like this was the funniest thing he'd ever orchestrated. His phone was still recording, capturing my humiliation for posterity. Mom giggled behind her hands, trying to appear apologetic while clearly enjoying every second of my shock and pain. "Oh, honey, you should see your face." And Jake, he was nearly in tears from laughing, doubled over and clutching his sides like he might collapse from the hilarity of it all. "Holy shit, Alina, your expression is priceless." "Oh, come on," Dad said, seeing my face drain of all color and warmth. "It's just a joke. You can't be that sensitive about everything." Jake wiped his eyes, still grinning with malicious delight. Damn, Alina, don't look so shocked. You know it's funny. You're always so serious about everything. Lighten up for once. I scanned the room. A few guests shifted uncomfortably, but no one defended me. They just watched, waiting to see how the family punching bag would react this time. Would I cry? Would I run? Would I play along and pretend it was funny? This wasn't about the cake. This was about 24 years of being treated like I didn't matter, of having my achievements minimized, my feelings dismissed, my very existence treated as secondary to Jake's needs and wants. I picked up my champagne glass and slowly raised it. The room quieted. Instead, I smiled. The kind of smile that didn't reach my eyes but carried something much more dangerous underneath. To my family, I said smoothly, for always being exactly who I thought you were. The laughter died. And to this party, so much effort put into humiliating me, I'll never forget it. Silence stretched. Mom's smile faltered. And to the future, I continued, because I finally learned exactly how to treat you, the way you've always treated me. I drained the glass in one smooth motion, the champagne bitter on my tongue, and set it down carefully on the table. The crystal made a soft clink that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Then I headed for the door, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor with deliberate precision. As I grabbed my jacket from the hall closet, I could feel their eyes on me, could sense the confusion starting to creep in. Jake was staring now, his smirk faltering as he tried to figure out if this was still part of the joke. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Oh, and one more thing," I said, pausing at the threshold and turning back to face them one last time. "Check your bank accounts in about 3 weeks. You'll figure out the rest soon enough." Then I walked out, closing the door behind me with the kind of quiet finality that said I might never open it again. I left them standing in their decorated living room with their cruel cake and their dying laughter, drowning in the thick, suffocating silence they deserved. I was never the daughter they wanted. That belonged to Jake, the charismatic one who could charm his way out of any consequence. He was their golden child, defended and enabled endlessly. Me, I was tolerated. It started early. I'd win competitions, bring home certificates, desperate for recognition. Meanwhile, Jake would draw crayon scribbles and Mom would gush about his artistic talent, displaying his artwork while my honor roll certificates got stuffed in drawers. "Don't brag, honey," Mom would say when I showed her my achievements, her voice carrying that particular tone of disapproval that made me feel ashamed for wanting acknowledgement. "Nobody likes a show-off. Be humble." But when Jake scored a goal in Little League Soccer, even though his team lost 8-1, Dad would take him out for ice cream and call all the relatives to share the big news. By middle school, the double standard was so ingrained I'd stopped trying to compete for their attention. When Jake got suspended for starting a fight, it was the other kid's fault for provoking him. When he got caught cheating on a test, the teacher was being unreasonable for not giving him a second chance. When I got perfect grades semester after semester, it was expected. When I got scholarships and awards, they barely glanced up from whatever crisis Jake had created that week. "Alina's just naturally good at school," Dad would say dismissively. "She doesn't need the encouragement." But what I needed was beside the point. What mattered was what Jake needed, and Jake always needed something. The real pattern became crystal clear during our college years. Jake barely graduated high school, scraping by with a 2. 3 GPA after 3 different tutors and countless second chances from teachers who felt sorry for him. But when he got accepted to a mediocre state school, probably because they needed to fill their enrollment numbers, they threw him a massive party. I remember that party with perfect clarity because the contrast was so stark. They rented a hall, invited 50 people, hired a DJ, bought a custom cake that actually said something nice. They gave speeches about how proud they were, how hard he'd worked, how bright his future looked. Meanwhile, I'd earned a full academic scholarship to Stanford, worked 2 part-time jobs to cover my living expenses, and started investing my earnings in a carefully researched portfolio that was already showing impressive returns. My parents' contribution to my education. A card that said congratulations and a $20 gift certificate to the campus bookstore. "We know you'll figure it out," Dad had said. "You're the smart one." Jake partied his way through freshman year like college was an extended summer camp. He joined a fraternity, skipped classes, failed most of his exams, and spent their money on everything except education. His Instagram was a constant stream of party photos and expensive purchases while I was studying 16 hours a day and eating ramen noodles to save money. When he flunked out completely during his second year, with a cumulative GPA of 1.8, my parents' response was pure sympathy and enabling. "College isn't for everyone," Mom said, shaking her head sadly while she rubbed his back as he sulked on the couch. "We probably pushed him too hard. He's just not ready yet." Pushed him. They'd handed him everything on a silver platter and he'd still managed to fail spectacularly. But somehow it was the system's fault, the professor's fault, the school's fault, anyone's fault but Jake's. But the real slap in the face came when they decided to give Jake a second chance. Without even consulting me, they started making plans for his fresh start. They found another school, made calls, pulled strings to get him readmitted somewhere else. They promised to pay his tuition again, rent him an apartment near campus, continue the monthly allowances that had funded his party lifestyle. And then, as casually as discussing the weather, they mentioned that I'd be co-signing his lease. "You have excellent credit now," Dad said, like it was a foregone conclusion. "It won't cost you anything. Just a signature. Family helps family." I should have said no. Instead, I said yes because that's what I'd been trained to do for 24 years. I signed the papers, guaranteed my brother's housing, and watched them treat it like the most natural thing in the world. Jake never thanked me, never even acknowledged what I was doing for him. To him, I was just another resource to be used when convenient and ignored otherwise. That's when I realized that it would never be enough. I could cure cancer and they'd still find a way to make it about Jake. So when I walked into that graduation party and saw the decorations, the banner, Mom's beaming smile, Dad's proud grin, I let myself believe, just for one shining moment, that maybe things had finally changed. Maybe this time they were actually proud of me. Maybe I'd finally done something worthy of their love. Then came the cake, and the laughter, and the recording, and I knew with crystal clarity that they would never respect me, never value me, never see me as anything more than a convenient target for their amusement. But that was okay, because after that night they'd never get the chance to use me again. Within a few days, the calls started piling up. 3 weeks of glorious silence on my end while chaos presumably built on theirs. I ignored the first few attempts, not out of spite, though I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of it, but because I genuinely didn't care anymore. I'd spent years dropping everything when they needed help, contorting myself into whatever shape would earn me a moment of approval from people who had never valued me in the first place. The missed calls started piling up quickly. Mom's voicemails began casual but grew increasingly frantic with each message. Jake's texts evolved from confused to angry to desperate. Dad's calls went straight to furious, then to bargaining, then to something that almost sounded like panic. I left them all unopened, unheard, unanswered. I already knew why they were calling. I'd known this moment would come from the second I walked out of that party. The only question was how long it would take them to figure out the scope of what they'd lost. Mom's first voicemail. "Sweetheart, something strange is happening with Jake's apartment. The landlord called and said there's an issue with the lease. Can you give me a call when you get a chance?" Still playing it cool, still assuming this was a minor inconvenience that I'd fix with a simple phone call. Her second message 6 hours later. "Alina, honey, I'm getting worried. The landlord says you're not listed as Jake's cosigner anymore. Did you forget to sign something? There must be some mistake." Jake's first text. "Yo, what's going on with my apartment?" His second. "Seriously, Alina, answer your phone." His third. "WTF did you do?" Dad's first voicemail was pure fury. "Alina, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you need to call me back immediately. You gave your word. You made a commitment. This isn't how adults behave." By day 10, the messages were coming multiple times per day. Mom was crying in some of them. Jake was threatening in others. Dad cycled between rage and desperation like he couldn't figure out which emotion would work better. "Your brother's lease is invalid," Dad said in message number 15. "He's going to lose his apartment. The landlord won't accept him without a cosigner. Fix this now." Jake's messages had devolved into pure entitlement and fury. "You screwed me over. I know you did this on purpose. Fix it now or I'll never forgive you." I smiled reading that one, as if his forgiveness was something I'd ever wanted or needed. 3 weeks earlier, right after walking out of that party, I'd gone straight to my car, sat in their driveway for a moment to let the full weight of their cruelty sink in, and then made 2 phone calls that would change everything. The first call was to Jake's landlord, but not to remove myself mid-lease, which would have been impossible. Instead, I'd been tracking something my family never bothered with: Jake's lease renewal date. His 12-month lease was up for renewal in exactly 6 weeks. I sent certified letters to both Jake and the property management company, formally notifying them that I would not guarantee any new lease terms beyond the current period. The landlord's response was swift and predictable. Jake had 30 days to secure a qualified replacement cosignor or accept month-to-month terms at nearly double his current rent. Given his employment history and credit score, finding someone willing to guarantee his housing was about as likely as him actually graduating college. The second call was to my bank, closing the account I'd been using to quietly subsidize my family's expenses for the past 2 years. See, they'd never realized how much I'd been helping them financially. When their mortgage payment was short because Dad's commission check was smaller than expected, I'd cover the difference. When Jake needed money for textbooks he'd never read, for meal plans he'd waste on junk food, for emergency expenses that were never really emergencies, I'd send what he needed. They never asked for this help directly. They never acknowledged it. They just expected it. Like it was my responsibility to keep their financial house in order while they focused on more important things, meaning Jake. When they started planning Jake's second college attempt, Dad had casually mentioned that I should pitch in since I was doing so well now. "Family takes care of family," he'd said, "and you've always been good with money." I'd never explicitly agreed to fund Jake's second chance, but they'd taken my help for granted. They'd built their plans around the assumption that I'd pay what I always paid, cover what I always covered, continue being their silent financial safety net. Instead, I'd done the one thing they never expected. I'd completely stopped. No more co-signing, no more emergency transfers, no more quiet bailouts. No more assuming responsibility for other people's poor decisions. The tuition deposit they were expecting from me, never sent. The monthly apartment payments they thought I'd help with, not happening. The spending money Jake was used to receiving when his allowance ran out early, gone. And now they were drowning, finally understanding that the water they'd been treading all these years wasn't actually supporting them. I was. On day 22, I finally answered Dad's call. I let it ring twice, took a sip of the excellent wine I'd bought with money that used to go toward their mortgage, and picked up. "What the hell did you do?" he barked before I could even say hello, his voice tight with an anger that barely concealed genuine panic. I held the phone away from my ear slightly, listening to his familiar rant about responsibility and family obligations and promises made. The same speech he'd given me countless times when I'd disappointed him, but never, not once, given to Jake when he'd failed spectacularly at everything they'd given him. When he finally ran out of steam, I spoke calmly, my voice steady and measured. "I don't think I will." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "What?" he finally said, his voice smaller, confused. "I said I don't think I will. Fix this, I mean." Another pause, longer this time, as the reality of what I was saying sank in. "You selfish little," I ended the call. He tried calling back immediately, then again. I let every single one ring through to voicemail. Jake tried next. I ignored him too. Then Mom called, and I decided to answer because I wanted to hear this conversation. I wanted to witness the moment she realized that their safety net was gone forever. "Sweetheart," she started, her voice trembling with emotion that sounded genuine for once. "We need to talk. This isn't like you, isn't it? I know you're upset about the party, and I understand that. Maybe we went too far with the joke, but this is serious now. Jake's future is on the line. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like Jake's decisions are finally catching up with him. Alina, honey, you know he can't get approved for an apartment on his own. His credit isn't good enough and he doesn't have steady income. He needs help. Sounds like a him problem. Alina." Her voice sharpened, taking on the tone she'd used when I was a child and she needed me to fall in line. "This is what family does for each other. We help when someone is struggling." I almost laughed. Almost. "No, Mom, this is what I've done for years. And what did I get for it? A cake that said congratulations, disappointment while you recorded my humiliation for entertainment. The first real silence of the conversation. I let it sit there, let her absorb the weight of her own actions. It was just a joke, she whispered, and I could hear the tears starting. So is this, I said and hung up. They didn't call again for several days. Dad was probably raging about my ingratitude and selfishness. Mom was likely crying about how I was tearing the family apart. And Jake was probably throwing the kind of tantrum he'd perfected over 27 years of getting everything he wanted without having to work for any of it. But I knew it wasn't over. There was still one more thing they hadn't realized yet, one more financial domino that hadn't fallen. And when it did, that's when the real panic would start. I didn't have to wait long. The call came on a Friday evening as I was settling into my newly purchased condo with a glass of wine that cost more than they used to spend on groceries in a week. Jake's number flashed on my screen as I watched the sunset over Elliott Bay from my floor-to-ceiling windows. Fifth call in a row, I finally answered. Thought we were done here, I said, keeping my voice relaxed and conversational. The money, Alina, the tuition money, it's gone. There it was, the other shoe dropping. I smiled because this was the part they hadn't figured out yet. See, it wasn't just the co-signing I'd walked away from. It wasn't just the monthly bailouts and emergency transfers. It was everything. All the quiet financial support I'd been providing for years, including the contributions they'd simply assumed I'd make toward Jake's second college attempt. You said you would help, Jake was saying, panic clear in his voice for the first time in years. The school called. The payment never went through. I don't have enough to cover it myself. I'm about to lose my spot. No, I replied calmly, taking another sip of wine. You assumed I would help. There's a big difference. But Mom and Dad said you were going to contribute. They said it was all arranged. Mom and Dad said a lot of things. Did they also tell you that I'd cut you off, that I'd removed myself as your cosigner, that I'd closed the account I was using to subsidize your lifestyle? Silence. Then much quieter. Alina, you know this is my last shot, right? No other school will take me after 2 failures. This is it. And there it was, that note of real desperation. The moment it finally hit him that he was truly screwed, that his safety net was gone, that for the first time in his life his actions might actually have consequences. Yeah, I said, I know. So you'll fix this? You'll help me out, just this once. I repeated the same phrase Dad had tossed at me countless times when I'd needed help, when I'd struggled, when I'd asked for support and been told to handle it myself. You'll figure something out. The silence that followed was profound. You're such a bitter bitch, Jake finally snapped, falling back on insults when manipulation failed. You're just doing this to punish me because you can't stand that I'm the favorite. No, I said evenly, my voice steady and sure. I'm doing this because I finally learned how to treat you the same way you've always treated me. I let that truth hang in the air for a moment before continuing. Your tuition deadline is Monday, right? That's 3 days. Good luck. Then I ended the call and blocked his number. The next day brought Mom, already crying when I answered her call. Jake's going to lose his spot, she sobbed into the phone. The payment deadline is Monday. The school won't hold his place without the money. I understand completely. Alina, please, I know you're angry about the party, but you're punishing all of us for one stupid joke. No, Mom, I'm finally treating you the way you've always treated me, with complete indifference to your needs and feelings. She gasped like the words had physically wounded her. That's not. We've never, haven't you? When I needed support during college, what did you tell me? When I asked for help with my student loans, what was your response? When I was working 16-hour days and barely sleeping, where was your concern? Silence. You told me I'd figure it out. You told me I was the strong one who didn't need help. You told me to stop complaining and handle my own problems. But that was different. How? How was it different? Because I'm a woman, because I'm smart, because I actually worked for my achievements instead of having them handed to me. I could hear her crying harder now, and for the first time in years I felt nothing. No guilt, no urge to comfort her, no desire to make her feel better at my own expense. We're family, she pleaded, falling back on the manipulation that had worked for so long. You have to forgive us, family forgives. Funny, I said. You only bring that up when you need something from me. When I needed understanding, when I needed support, when I needed basic human decency, somehow family obligations never applied. Alina, please, you don't understand what this will do to us. Jake's our son. We can't just let him fail. I could hear the real fear in her voice now. It wasn't just Jake's education that had fallen apart. It was the entire structure of their lives, the carefully maintained fiction that they were good parents, that their family was functional, that their golden child was actually worth the investment they'd made in him. Watch me, I said firmly. I don't owe you anything, not anymore, not ever again. That was the last time I spoke to them. They tried for months, guilt trips, fake apologies, desperate requests. They enlisted relatives, sent letters, but I'd chosen myself. Jake never made it back to school. Without my financial support, they couldn't cover costs. He moved back to his childhood bedroom, a 27-year-old with no degree, no prospects. Meanwhile, my consulting firm exploded in growth. I bought a penthouse in downtown Seattle, started dating Marcus, a software engineer who celebrated my success instead of diminishing it. 18 months later, Forbes featured me in their 30 under 30 list, calling me a self-made entrepreneur who built her first million before 25. I wondered if they saw it, if they finally understood what they'd lost. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. Within 4 years, I'd launched my own investment firm and reached 8 figures. I bought a house in the hills, bigger than anything they could imagine. I'd spent years being the daughter they tolerated, the sister they overlooked. I'd built my success without their support, grown stronger without their approval. Now I was the one who'd walked away. They were the ones left behind. The last joke was on them. Sometimes I drive past their neighborhood. The house looks smaller, worn down. Dad's car needs repair. The lawn isn't maintained. I don't stop. I just drive past in my Tesla, remembering the ghost I used to be, grateful for the woman I became. The family photos probably still don't include me. But that's fine. I was always cropped out anyway. Now I'm writing my own story.